Could we stand for the flag salute? Put your right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, roll.
A quorum is present.
Any persons wish to address the City Council on any item on today's agenda other than closed session may do so at this time.
Mayor, we want to...
we're pulling CSA 2. I'm sorry. Okay, folks, if we don't come forward, we're going to close the meeting. Close comment.
Good evening. My name is Steve Schultz, CFO at Ability First, and I'm here with Lori Ganjami, CEO of Ability First, just here available for questions under the item 01 ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening, council members. My name is Diane Sombrano. As usual, I have several concerns. Once again, there's no staff report in the document out front for A2. Somehow that seems to be a significant pattern we can't seem to break. A2, why are we not using the folks we had in the past? We used to claim she was very, very good, or did the corporation change names? We don't have any idea. Of course, I could make up my own ideas, but that would be based on not actually having a staff report. Now, last week we heard that one of the council members didn't have a staff report, and the fancy explanation after we broke for 10 minutes was that because the Brown Act required documents to be given to a majority, and look, we're not doing anymore. Oh, well, I'll talk to the people who are. A staff report was available to the majority. Well, you know what? Every last one of you were elected to represent. Every last one of you. So the minority, whoever that might be, that did not receive the staff report is being discounted, as are all the residents that individual or two individuals, could have been 3 or 4, but nobody seemed to open their mouth except for one, about not having that. So I'm going to have to assume that we're just doing the bobblehead go-along. And that doesn't serve this community well. How many millions of dollars have you spent? Because some of you had a need to go yeah, with I'm not sure who. Maybe it's the person who pays your campaign funds. Maybe it's the person on the staff that you have a particular fondness for. Whatever it is, it doesn't seem to be reflecting the needs of this community. Because in fact, you're not making sure we have the documents. What a concept. That was 3 inches last week. Who knows how many pages today, because guess what? Still not out there. You want to play it's on the internet? When you start giving internet service to every resident in this community, by the way, we're broke now, how are you going to afford that? Then maybe that would work. But you know, I have a neighbor who didn't believe me when I said we don't have the regular advertised AT&T internet service in our neighborhood. She said, oh yeah, we do, I just haven't had an interest. When she went to go check, there's at least a section of our community that minimum price for internet, not the fancy schmancy one, but dull, drab, boring, is $62 a month. Not 9 and not 14, but $62 a month. Wow, goes back to how those of us who, well, aren't we doing CBDG stuff? Oh yeah, we are kinda. What was it? 82% of us are below the free meal lunch line, and we're being charged the most. Standard op, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Ethel Austin, and I want to mention something on 01. Could I mention 01? Something on 01?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. It says about, I'm with Abilify First 100% because I have, everyone in the family has what they call autistic kids. The only thing I'm against is Crenshaw Boulevard. The officers have enough problems on Crenshaw. Now you take this R1 and change it to a R1 zone in R3. We talking about a project. I don't think they're gonna keep their word on this one, and I think the council should think twice about this being near Crenshaw, because the other day they had them jacked up. It's just a bad corner. It's just bad over there. So, and we don't trust them for us unless you get it in contract where it won't go. If it go to a M3, we really talking about too many people. It's too, and plus you have the projects next to that called where the academy is. I think those are projects behind there. So I think we better think twice on this one, guys. You all should get together on this one. And also I wanted to mention about, could I mention about the police department on the 4th of July, how nice it was?
Not right here, but at the end of the meeting you could.
Oh, okay. All right. That means they don't get no check, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Hello, Inglewood family. I'm Wild Bill Widener, and I just want to thank Mayor Butts and Michael Stevens for the meeting we had last Thursday, getting the appropriation to cool down that senior center over there. And everyone's saying everyone wanted it yesterday, but I told them it's on the way. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to announce that we're going to be pulling A2 because Mr. Saunders has verified that the report is not in the book, so we won't be hearing that this week. That was for Mr. Brown. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Frank, District 4. Payment of the bills. I guess, well, I don't know who's watching these bills, but $19,600 for billboards. I'm just wondering where, I haven't seen any billboards in Inglewood with the other one was Source Graphics, $19,300. Money's hurt when we hurting. Spend that kind of money, boys.
Committee, Mr. City Manager, if it's easy for us to get that information on those two items, could you have Ms. Watson try and check on that, or Mr. Brown?
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
City. 8090 Crenshaw. I see no need to change the zoning. We don't have enough problems on this side instead of making some more problems by changing the zoning and then build some apartment buildings. As you put into apartment buildings, you take away from the neighborhood. Now, you know, everybody come there to try to build something, they usually come and talk to the community first, find out what they think about it. How they don't address anything anymore, they don't have to address the community that's already there. And your community that's already there is senior voters. They old people. I'm one of them. And I don't think I should have to have an apartment house coming in on me. I'm working on one right down here on Region. You said it's money to the city. No, it's not. There's 10 acres across the 405 freeway. Good property. 10 acres would build 3 times as many houses that we're building now because we only use 3 acres. Now, Franklin and Morellis, I'm hoping y'all go along with me on this here. Let's take a look at what they gonna put there. Why change the zoning if you don't already know what they gonna put there? So I would appreciate it, Mr. Stevenson too and Ms. Dunlap. Y'all listen to me on this one. A few more y'all have listened to me on and we came out okay. Thank you very much. So we can't get no money for us people.
Evelyn Alexander, District 1. My question exactly, what are they actually proposing to put there? When you say multiple family residential, that could mean something 500-600 apartments, as many as can be built. This is a more or less residential neighborhood. And I don't see the reason for changing at this time. Ability First has been there for as long as, well, Harry Muir, Ability First has been there as long as I've been here in the city, and way before I came in 1970. So I would say no, we do not need that type of dwelling at that location. No.
Good evening, Mayor and staff. Cindy Jardina, resident, District 1. I happen to live at 80th and Crenshaw, and I think the Harry A. Mears Center has an enormous amount of value and worth. But our community has suffered from so many problems on Crenshaw, between the motels, the liquor stores, the people drag racing, the people being killed on Crenshaw racing. Really, we need to try and maintain the culture of our community. This District 1 is really a very special place. It really has an enormous culture there. The residents, we all know each other, literally from Victoria all the way to Van Ness. We have a sense of community. I think it shouldn't be too much to ask that what we do is respect the fact that the residents have bought into our community, choose to live there, choose to stay there. And I watch you guys on TV, so when I hear them talking about 168 units or whatever it is, the plan is, the Harry A. Mears Center is a very sweet, older, 1935 blue building, indoor swimming pool. I've taken a lot of my neighbors up there, and they've swam there. I just think that we want to maintain the culture of our community. We've been blighted by the foreclosure and predatory lending. We've been blighted to see people lose their homes and have to walk away. People that did not want to leave this community but had to leave because of the predatory lending. We have so many issues, it would be difficult to imagine the Harry A. Mears Center not there. But the residential component is a very powerful component, the culture that is in our community. So we are really, really, really concerned about what this really means. And we would like somebody to maybe come out and have some real dialogue with the residents before you do this change in the zoning. I don't think that's asking too much. I've been in my house 33 years. I bought my house, I was 23 years old. I make 10 times the money I made when I first started working for the county, and I don't choose to move. I choose to stay. And everyone in that community doesn't choose to move, they choose to stay. The only way people are leaving there, one or two ways. They're either dying and they're carried out, or they've lost their homes and they've been forced out. Other than that, our sense of community and our community is intact. It's the red clay tile district, for God's sake. If you want to do something, make everybody put clay tile roofs on their house and give them some sort of incentive so we can recreate the red clay tile district and reinvest in our community and beautify it at the same time. There are things that we need to think out the box on and ask people to contribute in our community to restore it back to its original beauty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Urbina.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. I want to tell back on what the lady who just spoke said. We're trying to keep our community cohesive, and it's really a residential single family. It started off when I moved there as a single family residential community. And now it seems as though you're trying to overload us with multi-family buildings. We don't need that. And before you try and pass this ordinance, I would like for you to explain to the citizens what you plan to put there. What kind of buildings or apartment buildings or whatever it is, what do you plan to put there? We should have a say-so, especially all of us who have lived in the community for so long. I've been there for almost 50 years. And I can see with these multifamily buildings it's going down, down, downhill. It's ruining Inglewood. And as a matter of fact, that's it's like a entrance into Inglewood. That little space there does not need apartment buildings there or multiple family buildings there. I'm sure you can come out of the box and think of something more creative than that. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lori Gann-Jamie. I'm the CEO of Ability First. We operate the Harry A. Meyer Center at 80th and Crenshaw, and I want to echo with what the last two ladies have spoken about, what a great corner it is and a gateway to the community and the property that we have there and the programs that we provide. Just to give you a little bit of history, the property was purchased in 1976 by Harry and Joan Meyer, donated to what was then called Crippled Children's Society in order to provide programs locally for children with developmental disabilities and adults. So it's a day program, both for children and adults. The swimming pool also, which is open to the community. It's not for residential, and our intent is not residential. We operate day programs, after-school programs for children with special needs and day programs for adults with developmental disabilities. We want to keep doing what we've always done there since 1976, but we need a new building. These three old buildings are, they're not ADA compliant, big problem for our population. They're not large enough, they're old, and we want to build, when we've been fundraising for 5 years to raise the money to build a new nice building, a 6,500 one-story square foot building on that property to keep doing the same things that we've always been doing. We're not looking at building an apartment building. We want to operate a day program, and we want to keep doing that for another 30 to 50 years. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
So you really didn't get your full time, but
Oh, okay, I was wondering. I thought that went quick.
No, Melissa, would you to give her 2 minutes because she started at the end of someone's time. But the question I have is, there seems to be a belief that you're going to put multiple family units.
No.
Tell people what you intend to do.
We intend to build a 6,500 square foot one-story building. The swimming pool still stays on the property, the indoor aquatic center there. We'll have a half basketball court, we'll have a patio area, we'll have triple the amount of parking we have now to get the parking off of 80th and 81st, because we have a lot of seniors that come in and swim, and there's very little parking there. So it's just revamping the property that we have so we can stay and keep doing what we've been doing, because these buildings aren't going to hold out much longer. We're not looking to build apartment buildings. The only reason for the zone change, as I understand it, and I don't know if staff's going to speak to this, but we just said we want to build this building, and we were told part of the property's under one zoning, part's under another, and we need to bring it all together. Okay. So we're just trying to build a new building for our day programs.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and staff. Renal Davis, 2nd District. Shoot from the hip. This is an easy fix. Ma'am, your organization seems to be doing great stuff, and I want you to continue to be able to do it. But people have concerns about, well, this is Inglewood. They've been had before. That's what it comes down to. This is easy. I would say hold back on this, submit the plans to your new facility. And then if it's kosher, we vote on it, we move on. Let me know when the groundbreaking is. Easy. Thank you.
Hello, Joyce Smith, District 1. And I'm in favor of the Meyer Center. They do very good work. My question is that if it is rezoned as R3, I think is the request, what if it changes hands? What if the people who run it now either relocate or sell the building or go someplace else? Couldn't someone, a subsequent owner, then put up a multiple story, multiple resident building? So that is my concern. If it stays as it is, and if they stay operating it, that's fine. But we don't know that they will, and who knows? My concern is if they do leave, what will happen there. Thank you.
Good evening. I'll be redundant because, I've been here for the last several meetings when this Henry Meyer thing came up. But I had the same question. It's fine that they're going to be there, but people are concerned. And that question was asked of you then before, and I don't know if you have some answer for the community as to if it does change hands. It'll be an R3, and I guess they can do whatever they want to do, and that's the concern. And as you have heard other people say that, they trick people at Inglewood because they say one thing, and then they come up and do another thing. I have friends who have had children that go through that center, and friends that use the center for the swimming and whatnot. But, we still have our concerns. So we're hoping however you guys work this, it's going to work for the community.
Close public comment. Yes. Item 1, CSA 1 and H1, excuse me.
Move allow payment for bills.
Second.
Excuse me. I actually had that marked as well with regard to the billboards. The 2 billboards for $19,600.
I have an answer for one of the two at this point. The first item on page 5, the city received about $20,000 in grant funds from the state they were used oil grant funds, and they were to be used to spread awareness about the negative impacts of used oil and other pollutants on our storm quality, and the monies had to be spent by June 20th. And so those were not general fund monies; those are grant monies that that were restricted for public education and awareness, and that's how that money was spent. Okay.
Okay.
No, actually, no one asked about that, but that information we appreciate having. It was check number 520960. 2 billboards.
That's the answer to that question.
No, the other one is on page 5, as you said, the city used oil program.
Oh, right. So that was the answer to the item on page number 2. The question you had regarding page 5 of the
No, you referenced page 5 when you just gave your answer.
It was page 2. That is the answer.
This is used...
CBS Outdoor 520960
right.
was the answer I just gave you regarding the used oil grant funds.
So the item on page 5, when it talks about the used oil programs, is something different?
On page 5, which item are you speaking of?
Check number 520998. Fifth from the bottom.
Yeah, that's $6,284.
Yes.
I'd have to do some research and find out what that item is.
Okay, well, you referenced 5 when you gave your answer.
No, I'm sorry.
So you're saying then that the 2 billboards for city advertising, they're both having to do with used oil?
The one that's on page 2, the CBS Outdoor 2 billboards, is for they're paid with used oil grant funds.
The reason we received those funds were for outdoor advertising?
Specifically for that.
For outdoor advertising?
Well, actually, it says for public education.
For oil?
Used oil, recycling, and stormwater quality control.
Where are the locations of these 2 billboards?
We'll get those for you. The locations were Manchester, east of Emerson, and Manchester and Florence.
East of what?
Emerson.
I'm sorry, East Westchester.
It's Westchester. So why would we put a billboard in Westchester?
Is that West Emerson?
Well, it's not Inglewood.
That is Westchester.
I'll get an answer to that. Basically, I believe that if they're state funds.
No, but it's our money. We should.
Right.
It was given to us,
right.
So I think we should spend it in our own city. Who made the determination about the billboards, the design of the billboards, and the locations? Who made that determination? Since I knew nothing of it until I saw it on here, and I do appreciate the members of the public who asked the question as well.
Yeah, I don't have the answer to who designed the billboards, but I can get that information for you.
And who made the decision spending the money on billboards as opposed to, say, something mailed to residents or something of that nature to households? We could have done that as well if it's for education, correct?
Right.
So
You're
who
right.
made the decision to put up 2 billboards, one in Westchester, instead of, say, doing a mailing to every household or something?
And I'll get the answers to those questions. I don't have those right now.
Okay.
All right. Well, okay. Well, whose auspices? Who would it fall under? Do you believe?
Under our Public Works.
Public Works. Okay. Another comment I had to make, Mayor, is since our warrant register is now online and residents are looking at it, which is a good thing for transparency here. I actually received a couple of calls regarding the warrant register. People are asking me why the city is reimbursing employees for education, meaning classes they take in college and so forth. And I would tell these individuals it's because it's in the memorandum of understanding, but they don't get it in today's economy, and I don't blame them, meaning we're cutting services, laying off people, and yet we're still reimbursing people when most of my families and constituents are paying their own way. And so that there's some concerns. I'm bringing it to this body's attention that is not setting well with many of the residents out there who have their water and sewer rates increased. They're about to have their trash increased, and yet we're still paying for reimbursement, which the employees are legally entitled to based on agreements signed by this council majority. It's not setting well. When they're kids, they have to pay for everything themselves. So just bring it to your attention that maybe we need to take a look at that. Thank you.
I can say that all of our MOUs are negotiated contracts, as you're aware, and in order to make any of those changes, they'd have to be negotiated, and we will be entering into negotiations with all the bargaining groups within the next 7 to 8 months.
No, I appreciate that. I think I made that comment that it's part of an agreed-upon memorandum of understanding. I made that statement. Thank you.
I have a question. I just have
Councilman
a question.
Stevens.
In reference to another issue, I researched the warrant registry. I could not find the payment made to the state regarding our ROFs.
Our ROPS?
Yeah, our ROFs. Would that be in our warrant registry? Or where would that payment be, and how much is that payment, number one? And then I'm also curious as to what percentage rate are we paying. I read an article pertaining to San Juan Capistrano over the weekend, which made me start researching this even further, and I cannot find a clear definition of what our payment is to the state regarding our ROFs, or what percentage rate we are paying if, in fact, we are now late. So have we made our payment?
Well, I think you should get Ms. Cruz, because for some reason I think that payment was canceled. I'm not certain, but...
Well, I'm sure Mr. Fields...
I'm not sure which...
Well, I'm telling you what I know. I'm just telling you what I believe. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Councilmember Stevens is referring to that council payment or not, but he's referring to our ROPS, which we have to amend every year. But as the mayor said, we did have a payment that was due, but at the council of our outside legal counsel regarding redevelopment, we were advised that we shouldn't pay that at this point in time, and I'm waiting still for a memo from our outside counsel advising me as to what the strategy is for not paying for it at this time.
So now the next question is, at what interest rate is this accruing? This is, of course, accruing at an interest rate since we have not made a timely payment. So what percentage is
I wouldn't characterize it as an untimely payment. It was a payment that, according to outside legal counsel, we did not have to make, and we did make it as part of our overall strategy for dealing with the state's abolishment of redevelopment. But again, I'm going to get more information, and I should be able to give you an answer with regard to that and any interest penalties that you're thinking we may have had to pay.
Because I'm concerned that if our payment was due at the first of the month in July and we haven't made that payment, then we're accruing a daily interest charge.
Yeah.
Now, in the newspaper, they made reference to something that's close to 10%.
I don't believe that's correct, but again,
That's not correct?
let me
Okay.
get back to you on that.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you.
Okay, Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Dunlap,
No.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. PH1.
The next scheduled matter is a public hearing to continue, public hearing to consider an ordinance adoption of the negative declaration and approving Zone Code Amendment 2012-02 to establish regulations for ambulance dispatch service in the C1 zone subject to special use permit approval.
Has notice of the hearing been given the time, form, and manners required by law? And do you have the affidavit on file?
Notice has been given and affidavit is on file.
Is the complete file of the Planning Commission present?
Yes, the file is present. Yep.
Have any communications been received on the matter?
Communications have been received and have been distributed to mayor and council and the outside on the table.
All right, is there a staff report on the matter?
Yes, Mayor, the acting Economic and Community Development Director, Linda Tatum, will give the staff report, or introduce the staff report.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. This item is a continued public hearing. The City Council heard the staff, a full-blown staff report on June 19th when this item was considered, and there were a couple of questions that you asked staff to get information for and bring back to the council. And tonight, the staff report covers the responses to those questions, and I'd like to summarize those briefly. The proposal was to amend the city zoning code to allow ambulance services as a permitted use within the C1 zone, and the Planning Commission recommended that this ordinance amendment be approved subject to a special use permit process. The questions that council asked staff to go back and investigate is the number of calls that were originated from the existing ambulance service facility that is currently located in the C1 zone to determine the amount of those calls that were providing service locally to Inglewood residents. We've gotten that data from the ambulance provider, the service provider, and that number is at approximately 90% of those calls are to service Inglewood residents. In addition, another question that was asked was regarding any of the fee services or the fee for providing those ambulance services. And we were not provided the fee schedule, but the concern I understood from council was that the fee services varied for Inglewood residents relative to the fees that were charged in other communities. And what we were told is that the county establishes that fee schedule and that it is consistent throughout the entire region that is serviced by the Los Angeles County, and that map of those service areas was provided in your staff report. But there is no variation in the fees among cities, and it is consistent throughout the entire regional area. With that, staff would like to go over and provide a little bit more detail based upon some of the concerns that council had regarding the location of this facility. So I'd like to point your attention to the slide here. Just a general idea. This is the entire city, and this is the zoning map that shows the entire city. Very specifically, the C10 area in the middle of the map is where the zoning ordinance amendment is proposing to change the zoning code to allow ambulance services within that zone. That is specifically in the downtown area. The other area of the community that is currently where ambulance services are permitted by right is the M1 area, and that's the area that you see highlighted here. It's generally along Florence Boulevard and east of the 405 freeway. So the C1 area here is where it's being proposed. The M1 area is where it's currently permitted by right. Council specifically asked that we bring back a larger version of the downtown map, and as you can see, as you can see here, this is the downtown area in a little bit greater detail. This brown street there, the green here is La Brea. This is Florence, that's going east-west. La Brea again. This is Manchester, that's also going east-west. So that's the general area that if the council should approve this ordinance, it is, you would be approving a subsequent ambulance service provider to come into the city, and they would be limited to either this C1 area with an SUP approval that would have to be approved by the Planning Commission and appropriately conditioned. And those conditions were outlined in the staff report. Or they would be allowed to go into the M1 areas. Currently today they're allowed in the M1 areas, and that use can go into those areas by right. That concludes staff's presentation, and we are again recommending that the City Council adopt a negative declaration for this item and approve the zoning code amendment as recommended by the Planning Commission. My understanding is that the ambulance service provider is here in the audience if you have corrections or any questions of him, but I would like to point out that this, if the council should approve this amendment, it would not approve that particular use. They would still be subject to having to come back through the SUP process, through Planning Commission, request that, get an approval for that use before they could legally operate.
Thank you. Are any persons present that would just wish to address the council on the matter? All right, we'll close public input. Oh. You got to move fast here, my man.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff. My name is Joe Chidley. I'm the CEO of McCormick Ambulance and property owner on Hillcrest. McCormick Ambulance began operation in the city of Inglewood in 1962. We were headquartered right down here on Prairie at 635 South Prairie. We consider ourselves part of the fabric of the community of Inglewood. My father grew up at a house right down here on Regent Street that's still there today. Graduated from Inglewood High School, was a member of the Inglewood Fire Department for a while. My brother was an Inglewood firefighter. My sister graduated from St. Mary's High School. I personally went to Little Violet's nursery school down there on Centinela and graduated. Some of you remember that? Anyway, I graduated from Daniel Freeman Paramedic School. So we've been in Inglewood for over 50 years now, and we really feel part of the community. I know I only got a little bit of time, so I'll rip through a few of these bullet points for you real quick. But for many years, we were stationed at the address on South Prairie there, and when we lost our lease about 4 or 5 years ago, we were we looked for the most ideal location to post from in the city while we searched for another piece of property, and we identified Hillcrest in Manchester as the ultimate location. Eventually, we found a property for sale at 431 East Hillcrest, and we invested and bought that property. We now have 2 ambulances stationed out of there. We are the 911 provider for the city of Inglewood. No other ambulance company is licensed to provide the 911 services for the city of Inglewood. We're required to be on scene within 8 minutes, and we have maintained a 99.7 compliance rate since we began the contract in 2006. Since 2006, we've only received 2 sound-related complaints, but we've never had a complaint for our response time. Again, we are the EOA provider. We respond Code 3 with the LA County Fire Department. We are an integral part of the 911 system in the city of Inglewood. And basically, we respond to over 1,000 calls a month in the city of Inglewood. By comparison, the city of Hawthorne is about half of that. So we're quite busy here. Denying the code amendment would not alleviate us from our responsibility to respond within 8 minutes, because we would still have to post and respond from the area. We have some letters of support that I believe you received from the County of Los Angeles EMS agency. We received a letter of support from the Deputy Chief of Los Angeles County Fire. There are members of the LA County Fire here that would speak on our behalf if you so desire. And I would be available for any questions if you have them.
Thank you for right now.
Okay.
We're probably a little later.
Okay, thanks very much.
Is there any other public comment? We'll close public comment. Is there a motion to waive further reading?
I so move. Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember
Aye.
Stevens?
discussion first?
No discussion.
This is just wait for the
No,
reading.
but we should discuss it before we get to that.
No.
Have to wait for the reading.
Vote.
Let's just wait. Let's just waive the further reading.
further reading.
And then we'll have discussion.
Yeah.
Madam City Clerk?
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Dunlap?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Franklin?
Aye.
Mayor Buds?
Aye. So is there a motion to introduce the ordinance, and then we'll have discussion?
I so move.
We don't need
Second,
a
well, you
discussion.
just
should
said
come
discussion should
first.
come
Yeah,
first.
introduce.
Second.
And now discussion.
Colleagues, shouldn't the discussion come first before we
Yes.
introduce the ordinance? Otherwise, it's almost like a
What's the public
moot
hearing
point.
for?
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to come first. We can have discussion, and then we could vote. So that's what I'm doing as the chair. We have a
Well-
first and a second, and now we have your comments.
My point was that once we introduce it once we make a motion, then it's pretty much a moot point.
Actually, we still have to adopt it in a couple of weeks.
Discussion should come first.
Discussion should
Well,
come.
let me just ask you this. Indulge me as the chair, and this is the way I'm going to do it,
Okay. It's not-
and we'll have a discussion. Just indulge me.
My colleagues, my concern with this, number one, 12 years ago, this was an issue that I had researched, and my information found, the information that I gathered at that time, definitely identified that Inglewood was paying a premium for ambulance services. Now, if the Los Angeles County has now established a policy where all communities all pay a uniform rate, well, then I'm not familiar with that. But 12 years ago, the city of Inglewood was paying more than Lomita. We were paying more, and El Segundo has their own fire service. They pay absolutely nothing to be transported to the hospital. And so residents in the city of Inglewood, you can pay as much as over $1,000 for a simple ride from their home in the avenues to Sentinel Hospital. And to me, that's just outrageous. But that's not the issue regarding a zone change here. According to Ms. Tatum, I requested that you provide me with the information of who actually owns the property of where they are now. You made no mention of who owns the property. Did you obtain that information?
My understanding is that the previous speaker, Mr. Chidley, is the current property owner.
Mr. Chidley, is he affiliated with McCormick?
He is the gentleman that just spoke. He is the CEO of McCormick.
So the property is owned by...
He is the current owner of the property.
Really? Interesting. When I was attending Inglewood High School, a young man was actually one of the sons of McCormick Ambulance Service. What's your first name?
I have 7 brothers. Several of them went to Inglewood High School.
Okay, all right, great. And so the point is that the drivers would all sleep in quarters, which has now the quarters were torn down, and McCormick made it into their park lot. Now they've relocated to a different location, behind Bruno's at Manchester and Hillcrest. The issue that I'm making here, Ms. Tatum, is that I'm not against McCormick Ambulance Service. The problem is this at the location. When they were on Prairie and they would exit their lot there, if they had to travel with the sirens on, lights blaring, lights going, and the siren on, it was no disturbance to a community because across the street was the racetrack. Now what you are proposing to us, what they are proposing, is to place them in the center, just on the perimeter of our downtown area. That means that we have a situation whereas, if necessary, because of safety, they have to sound their siren. People who have offices there who may wish to utilize a storefront for office purpose, if they're on the phone talking with a client, all of a sudden there goes the siren. I've got residents across the street who live in senior housing who are home during the day and at night. Many are not able to sleep that well as it is, for whatever the reasons are. They have complained to me about the noise from that facility. Once we give them a zone change, as you stated here, once we give them a zone change, at that point in time, they have a right. They have a right to operate there. And that's the issue. We cannot then come back and say, And I'm not even sure if we could even, I'm not even sure if we could actually place a restriction that they could not sound their siren when they leave that facility, because the way that facility is set, a car coming around the corner, oftentimes they have to make an immediate left turn against traffic. And unless an officer is there, they will not be cited for it. But that's not really our purpose here. Our purpose is to have them be able to operate safely. And when they exit that facility, they first have to make a right turn, go down and make a U-turn. They've had at least 2 accidents that I know of, that I've witnessed, where the driver made a left-hand turn, went to Manchester, and someone was coming around the turn, or simply was traveling down Manchester and clipped the front of their car. Ms. Tatum, I do not understand how you could recommend this as something for us to approve, knowing how this site is not conducive with an ambulance service, where they're trying to get to when they're attempting to get to the person who is in distress as quickly and as rapidly as possible. I do not even see how you could even recommend this to us to approve. There's so many other areas that we could place them. So could you please explain what makes this facility so much better, Ms. Tatum, than any other available piece of property in the city of Inglewood, in your opinion, other than that it's centrally located? Because I have property available on Florence Avenue near Safel Central that's available. I have property that's available down further down near the 405 freeway. What makes this property so conducive to this? Thank you. Ms. Tatum, go ahead.
Mayor and council members, this recommendation by staff is a request or a recommendation that the zoning code be changed to allow the use that is called ambulance services within the C1 zone. As it happens, the only C1 zone in the city is located in the pink area in the downtown area. If council should approve this amendment, it does not approve McCormick Ambulance Services. The approval would then require McCormick or any other ambulance services that desire to locate in the city to come to the Planning Commission, apply for an SUP. At the time they would apply for an SUP, the process would be for staff to fully investigate the operation of the facility, and typically it's incumbent upon us to look at the any potential impacts of that particular operation at the specific location they request the SUP approval for. We would be very thorough in that investigation, as we typically are. We would coordinate with the police department. We would coordinate with the Los Angeles County Fire Department. We would do a comprehensive assessment of their request and make a recommendation, and ultimately the Planning Commission would make a determination regarding whether or not the SUP should be granted for that use. The staff report, in being very considerate of the potential concerns for this type of use, it is a vital community use. A community needs to have ambulance services. I went over it a little bit before, but if you could indulge me to just go back briefly to talk about the considerations that we, the staff, looked at when we considered an appropriate location for this. And this is specifically in response to your question, why staff recommended the C1 zone. And again, it's the C1 zone that staff is recommending be allowed to have an ambulance service with the approval of an SUP. It is not this specific location. So in considering where in the city an ambulance service use would be appropriate, we considered not just the C1 zone, which is what you see here, but we considered all the city's other commercial corridors. But if you look at the location of the other commercial corridors, and I'll just start here, La Brea is one. It's primarily commercial. This is Arborvita, another commercial corridor. Manchester, a commercial corridor. And Florence is an industrial corridor. The last commercial corridor is, of course, Imperial, and then parts of Crenshaw. And again, Manchester goes all the way to the city border. because the commercial quarters tend to have fairly shallow lots that only go as deep as the about 100 feet, and because all of those commercial quarters, or for the most part, generally back up to residential, the thought was that if we allowed it in commercial quarters, you would have these immediately adjacent to existing residential, just about any location you put them. So in considering that, and in considering trying to minimize their potential impact, because if you said C2 rather than C1, this could be in any of those quarters at any location in the city, and it's pretty much guaranteed that they'd be backing up to single-family residential. At this location in the C1, C1 typically is not adjacent directly to single-family. So that was the primary thought for saying C1 is more appropriate, because you wouldn't be directly adjacent to single-family. That was one of the considerations. We mentioned before, the other consideration is that in the downtown you have your highest concentration of businesses, offices, and daytime population. And from a service perspective, it was probably appropriate to consider the response time. And given that you have a significant daytime population, including senior citizens who I would suggest, we haven't done data analysis to say it, but typically have a higher requirement for ambulance service than other populations, we thought it would be closer and you could get better response time to the existing senior population. So that was another consideration. The other considerations were the noise, limiting the number that could go into downtown, and they're fairly well spelled out in the staff report, but we considered every potential way that we could minimize the impact of this service that is critical to the community, and you need to have, and again, summarizing response time, access to significant populations, and minimizing their potential to impact single family directly next to them. That was the basis of staff's recommendation for this use being allowed in the C1 with an approved conditional use permit that the Planning Commission would have to review very specifically and in great detail to determine the specific location and the appropriateness of that location. And they would appropriately condition it to minimize when the sirens could go off, under what circumstances, and other safety considerations that we would consider with the SUP process.
Okay. So Ms. Tatum, I just want to say this to colleagues. In my opinion, though it's for sale, they're not the owner of it, a far better site for this type of business would be right here at Florence and La Brea, the old Acosta Taco site, right there next to the railroad tracks across from the Bilo. That would be ideal. That would be ideal for something like this, don't you think?
I don't disagree with you, but unfortunately we don't have the option to.
Well, I understand that,
but I agree that would be a good location. You're absolutely right.
What's the zoning
Okay, Councilwoman Dunlap.
What's the zoning at that property?
The Acosta, let's see if we can get a little of the detail. It is C2. So under the current zoning, again, with the idea of trying to minimize the impact, because not only, this thing is very sensitive, not only would this location be allowed, it would be allowed up and down Centinela and at several other locations in the city. Again, speaking to our point of saying let's limit it and make it just C1, because this is the only location in the city where C1 exists. That was a consideration.
Okay, well, I actually have a problem with the C1 zone. And actually our vision for that area is to have mixed use, which would be housing in that area, and as well as like shops underneath, kind of like if you go down to Lincoln and Manchester, if you see that big corner there where they have condominiums on top and great little shops and things underneath. So that's, you know, a vision that we have for downtown. So there would be housing. When you talk about there's no daytime population, there's very little daytime population in downtown, which is a problem for us. So we actually want to do something to increase that. But there must be something better, a better location than the heart of our downtown. I appreciate the fact that they're here. Obviously, I want them to be within our city limits. I want them to be able to have a location that is conducive to very fast response times. That's very critical. You keep talking about the special use permit, which I'm very familiar with, but what are the grounds? if we have approved this evening a negative declaration, and we do approve the C1, what would be the grounds by which an SUP could be denied?
I can certainly briefly.
Very quickly.
Yes, I'll list the categories of consideration or the things that Planning Commission would consider.
No, I want to know what things by which they could be denied with. How could they be denied an SUP?
If they don't provide the appropriate operational considerations, and we talked about things like looking at the street access, how they access the property, putting in place warning signals and signage on the street, some way to warn before they enter
finish my
traffic.
remarks. Thank you if you want to conclude
Sure.
after. But that's the problem. Special use permits, I mean, once you change the zoning, they're going to be able to go in there. They just have to tweak it to driveways and access like she's talking about. So it'd be very hard for us to deny once they have the zoning changed. And we approve a negative declaration because we're stating officially it is not going to impact the neighborhood. That's what the action is before us. So once again, I would prefer that we did a little more homework on this. So I'm not prepared to vote on it tonight myself. But I also want to state to the chair that the motion to waive further reading and introducing of an ordinance should not take place until after there's been a discussion of the public hearing, meaning we're listening to the staff report, we're listening to the public. We should be able to ask questions and have a discussion, and then the procedure would be to move to waive further reading and introduce it if that is the will of the majority. I mean, that's the sequence that's good public policy with regard to us receiving information, because we should be able to hear each other's comments and ask our own questions prior to introducing it. I mean, it's just we're not doing that right. So I'm hoping that the chair will reconsider that in the future for other public hearings. But
thank you, Ms. Dunlap.
But my time isn't up.
Oh, I said thank you. I was thanking you for your help.
Oh, he's thanking me for my advice. So anyway, but once again, I want them here. They do a great job, and I do appreciate that. I think every family, everyone in this room today, if you live in the city of Inglewood, there's been a member of your family or a neighbor that's been assisted. So we do appreciate the good service that you've been providing to us. I would just like to see if staff can come up with a different location. Thank you.
Mayor.
Councilman Morales.
Thank you. This is obviously not the first time we've seen this issue before us. It's a difficult issue in the sense that obviously an ambulance is one thing that we all want to real close by when we need it. But on a daily basis, we understand that there's a somewhat of an impact to the surrounding area. Obviously, we could sit here and say that the C1 zone, we do want housing, we do want everything else that could later on be impacted. We could also say it over here on Florence and La Brea, the D3 site, which is right across from that empty property. That's something that we're looking forward to as well. Would fit in with mixed use there. But at issue here is the sense of we were trying to get to a point where the ambulances had the right in some form, in some central part of the city where we could control. Here, the staff came up with a C1 zone because it's the only C1 zone, correct?
That's correct.
So when we change the zoning within C1 zones, that's how we're trying to maintain it close to the center of the city. Now, in regards to the last time we spoke about this, we spoke about response times. We spoke about how the fire department felt about it. We spoke about options. I even mentioned the option of west of the 405, the industrial area over there. But I understand, obviously, that is in my district. But I could see how it could be extremely far to someone up on the other side of Crenshaw. It could be extremely far, even past Prairie, etc. So we have to understand that the impacts, there are some times where we're going to have to balance, do some sort of balance and say, this will make sense here for the entire city of Inglewood. My area, the area furthest east of the city, considering the traffic. We still have a portion that's south of Century that we cover. That's a distinct distance than if we placed it further north. And looking at it in that sense, I got to tell you, this is an area which, albeit not a perfect area, I don't think we could find a perfect area, but albeit imperfect, we need to, consider the facts that we spoke about last time. They've been responded to. That's how I feel about this particular issue. That it's not a perfect one, but it's a very well thought out option. So those are my comments right now.
Thank you. Councilman Franklin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And also, thank you very much for your report. And also, I got my color maps, which was good, because I now have a better appreciation of what I see there. I now can see up front and personal. In District 4, we have this issue involving ambulance service and the concern of response time. And that I remember just recently in the Imperial Village, there was an emergency need response for a resident. And it wasn't the emergency response that I have McCormick's that is near on Imperial Highway between Doty and Lamoli Avenues, nor the fire station that was at 108th and Crenshaw that responded to this need, but it was from Hawthorne at 120th and Crenshaw. That fire station responded for that need. And so, as a resident in the area, I live about 3 blocks away from Imperial Highway, and I can still hear the ambulance going to and fro throughout the night. I call it one of those necessary evils, because someday I may need them, or my family members may need them, and it's one of those things that we have to weigh what is crucial to us and not be selfish for the benefit of mankind. The other thing I want to raise is that the county fire department is the one that will determine the frequency of need, then would share their input whether or not we're going to have any ambulance services, because they're the ones that contract out for that service to be used. And then they have a mandate that whoever is the operator that they contract out for the ambulance service, that the maximum response time is 8 minutes and 59 seconds. So if they can get within the downtown area, which houses many of the seniors, which requires response time to be the utmost 11th hour response, I think it's critical that we have that C1 area made available. I think also what's important is, contrary to our policy where we're talking about they can have the lights and sirens flashing, but when they get within 100 feet of the residential streets, that they turn it off within 100 feet. The county does not support that. The county fire department says that their policy is to always use both lights and sirens for every emergency. And so I want to be sensitive to the fact what is in the best safety and interest of the drivers going to the emergency, as well as for the welfare of the family and the one that needs that service. So based on your staff reports presentation and the fact that we as a city still has the authority of the special use permit, I think it's critical that what the Planning Commission did was appropriate to bring this item before us, and I think it's responsible government for this council to support their recommendation. Thank you.
Ms. Tatum, what was the genesis of this item?
This item was based upon the fact that it came to staff's attention. I think initially it was a noise complaint, but ultimately, in looking at our records, we discovered that the existing McCormick ambulance service was not in compliance with code.
Okay.
And when code enforcement cited them for their violation of the code requirement, because it wasn't specifically identified in the code as being allowed in that use, they came to staff and said, what are our options? And appropriately, we said that because it's not currently in the code, we would have to examine. The code says that Planning Commission, when a use isn't specifically called out, Planning Commission has to determine an appropriate location for that use. Location meaning an appropriate zone, not a property, but an appropriate zoning. So that was what initiated staff doing the analysis, taking it to Planning Commission, and asking for their recommendation.
Okay. Has there been any consultation with LA County Fire as to, since they are our emergency service right now, in addition to McCormick's, as to a demonstrated need to have a facility in this location?
They haven't. They have supported the facility at this location, and generally they supported the change of the zoning to allow them to come in and go through the process. But yes, the county fire is supportive of.
Are there any representatives from LA County Fire here tonight that could speak to the matter? And would you identify yourself and your rank in the department and give us your input?
Scott Mahan, LA County Fire Department, County Chief.
Okay, Bat Chief, you could come up to the mic. I know you got the big boy voice.
What can I answer?
I just wanted to get you to weigh in on the necessity or not to have ambulance services located in the central core of the city. Because I'll tell you what the concern is, that we have future uses that, you know, may be somewhat compromised in their desirability by the fact that an ambulance leaving every so often. But I do know this, everybody wants a fire truck to come fast, but no one wants to live near a fire station. Yes. So with that in mind, could you just give us your input?
Well, when it's all said and done, when the sequence of events go through in the decision-making process, gathering facts, from my perspective, we want them right in the center of town.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just that simple. Do you have any statistical data on responses in the city of Inglewood that would indicate that response times would be enhanced, or is this just empirical, just looking at the fact that it's centrally located?
We could provide that. I don't have it with me right now, but I'm sure the facts would bear out that having this ambulance service in the center of town will serve the public the best possible way.
Well, I think that's important because I'm sitting here in the middle here because I recognize the necessity for, you know, emergency services, and I know that no one wants to live near a fire station or an ambulance dispatching center. But at the same time, I'd have to know that this is absolutely necessary from our actual experience right now. If we're fine right now, then I wouldn't see why we would do this. But if we're not, then it just makes sense. So this is pretty important piece of data. And so, Ms. Tatum, would it be too much of an imposition if we did hold this over until we received more concrete response time data from the fire department?
There would be no concern in terms of continuing the item, and we would just work directly with the fire department to have them. I'm hearing that you want specific response time data.
I want an analysis based on what our response time is now, and they do modeling all the time in the fire department as to what would happen, and also it's very important to me to estimate the percentage of runs that would come from that location based upon our historical data. That's important because I'm very sensitive to Councilman Stevens' concerns. I'm very sensitive to that. But but if statistically it says the community to be safer, then I feel it's something we must do. But I need to know that it must be done.
And we can provide that. Tell you that where we're standing right now, including where the ambulance company is right now, is the second busiest engine company in LA County.
Okay, and that's great. And you come back with the numbers, and you'll probably sway me. So if it's okay. If I could ask my colleagues, if you withdraw the motion. Go ahead, Councilman Franklin.
I just want to acknowledge, Mr. Fields, that McCormick's provided us, this council, with some of their calls and their locations. So if we can also provide that information to the council if they don't have it, that would be appreciated as well as the fire department.
Would that be taken into consideration with your data as well?
Repeat that, please.
Would that be taken into consideration with your data as well, since they're an alternate dispatch?
We would consider that as well.
Of course, because the calls come in to you, isn't that correct?
They come in either through CHP or through law enforcement and then forwarded to us.
All right.
And then with the engine company, the paramedic squad, and the ambulance, that's where we're in full service and we can provide, move our patient to the hospital.
Okay, so
it's a team concept.
So we'll look forward to that information. Would you say within 30 days would be satisfactory?
Very easily done.
All right. Thank you. Is that agreeable, colleague?
I don't have a problem.
I have no problem. That's good.
Councilman Stevens?
That is
All right.
fine.
So we'll continue the hearing until, can you give me some dates, Ms.
Sure.
Horton?
30 days. We're at
Yes.
15. You wanted August the 21st.
All right.
Today is the 17th.
Today's the 17th.
So the 21st. Can I just check that book? Just to
Sure.
make sure. Thank you. It's the 21st.
Mr. Mayor, what time parameter are you looking for?
30 days, August. Oh, it's for the data? A week before the 21st.
Okay, so would you like a 30-day sample or a 60-day sample?
Oh, actually, I would love a 60-day sample, but I'd like a historical sample that maybe went back at least a year, 18 months.
Very good, thank you.
All right, thank you.
August the 21st. That's a
August the
good date.
21st. So we'll continue the hearing until August the 21st. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, what's the next scheduled matter?
The next scheduled matter is a public hearing to consider a public hearing to receive input on the draft fiscal year 2012-15 consolidated plan, including the fiscal year 2012-13 annual action plan.
Has notice of the hearing been given the time, form, and manner as required by law, and do you have the affidavit on file?
Notice has been given, and affidavit is on file. And there
Have
has
any
been-
communications been received on the matter?
No communications have been received.
Is there a staff report, Mr. City Administrator?
Yes, Mayor and City Council. Pamela Thigpen, Grants Manager, will be given the staff report.
Ms. Thigpen?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Pamela Thigpen, Grants Manager, in conjunction with Damian Pipkins, the Grants Coordinator under the CDBG Division. This evening's public hearing is to request that the council receive input on the draft fiscal year 2012 to 2015 consolidated plan. That's a new 3-year consolidated plan, which includes the fiscal year 2012-2013 annual action plan, and requests council approve the plan for submission to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development no later than...
Excuse me, we need a quorum. Thank you.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Part for the plan submission to HUD by the due date of August 15th. The consolidated plan provides the city with an opportunity to design housing and community development programs into effective, coordinated neighborhood and community development strategies, and creates an opportunity for strategic planning to take place in a comprehensive context relative to the city's priority community development and housing needs. The plan integrates the economic, physical, environmental, community, and human development into a comprehensive and coordinated fashion. The plan states how the city will pursue the following goals for housing and community development programs, including decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanded economic opportunities. It allows the community to address and assess the affordable housing and community development needs, to assess the housing and market conditions, to make data-driven, place-based investment decisions relative to housing and community development activities and projects and designs, and create a framework for community-wide dialogue to identify housing and community development priorities. The population in the city of Inglewood has declined slightly by 2,907 individuals, or roughly 3% of the population, from 2000, which was 112,580, to the 2010 census data of 109,673 persons. Again, that's a decline of 3%. For the first time during the 2010 census, the U.S. Census did not include the census long form and income information. The income information was compiled using a different format and method under the U.S. Census American Community Survey. HUD has indicated that the format for the population and income data necessary to create our new census eligibility tract maps must be modified and formatted, and therefore is not yet available for creating the new consolidated plan census tract maps. HUD has not indicated when they would have that reformatted and have that data available. So the staff and the city is continuing to use the CDBG eligible census tract maps that was previously developed from the 2000 census and revised and updated in 2004. However, using the current information from the American Community Survey and the comprehensive housing affordability strategy, also known as the CHAS, the city's updated housing element, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, also known as
Okay, Ms. Thigpen.
Yes, sir.
As soon as we have everybody quiet down, you can continue. Folks, we're back in order. Ms. Thigpen.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Again, the next slides identify the detail of recommendations for expenditures of funds in each of the 3 consolidated plan grant programs. Under the CDBG program, it is recommended, as we had mentioned, to continue the city's program of reconstructing local streets and sidewalks, including pedestrian ADA ramps, of $300,000 apiece for next fiscal year, carrying over the Vincent Park Lighting Improvement Project. As I mentioned, as a carryover fund that's already been allocated, it is anticipated that project will continue and conclude into next fiscal year. We mentioned additionally having some more improvements made to North Park, as well as the carryover and continuation of the project to install the artificial turf fields at Edward Vincent Park, and to carry over and continue the project related to the Locust Street Senior Center project. That had already been allocated previously. Continuing under community development block grant funds, we're recommending that the city maintain its targeted effort of code enforcement in CDBG eligible census tracts. Again, program administration is maximum of 20% of your annual entitlement allocation. For next fiscal year, that amount is $295,584. Just to give you an example, this current year's program administration was for $485,000. So there's an extreme reduction as it relates to the operations within CDBG program administration. And continuing to provide public services, again with the maximum of 15% of the entitlement being $221,668. Staff is recommending that the mayor and council continue its funding additionally of the senior home delivered meals program in order to alleviate any wait list, and staff has recommended at the request of the Parks and Recreation Department that amount, although public services allocation is being reduced, that amount remains static into next fiscal year, which is $89,000 for senior home delivered meals. The city still has to provide fair housing counseling, and the Housing Rights Center has come in and in response to their proposal has requested that has identified they would not be raising the rates for the services they've been providing for the last 4 or 5 years at the same rate. Then additionally would be recreation at Rogers Park, Saminsky Park, and summer day camp services for the kids. The city also we currently, during this current fiscal year, was providing additional CDBG housing management services to provide partial payment for the program administration for the tenant-based rental assistance program, and that is under CDBG. This current year, I believe it was a 2-year contract with CDBG program, housing management services at $150,000. $200,000, it was $100,000 per year. Staff is recommending that program with the new regulations in the home program be insourced, and that would reduce the cost from the CDBG housing management services from $100,000 a year to $30,000 a year of CDBG funds. Under the home program, the $5.2 million in available resources, we will continue and carry over and begin implementation of the homeowner housing rehabilitation program, for which the council had allocated $2.5 million that is still available and carrying over. Staff is recommending, in response to the proposals that were received under a call for request of proposals for the use of home funds, staff received a proposal from Thomas Saffron and Associates for the acquisition and rehabilitation of the senior Section 8 project-based apartment complex known as Eucalyptus Park Apartments, and they requested $1.8 million of a project that I believe exceeds $6 or $7 million. They will be putting in their own equity as well as have gotten secure financing for their tax credit application from, I believe it is Citicorp. Again, in light of the extreme cost burden for our lowest income tenants that the council had identified, the extremely low-income senior citizens over age 62, honorably discharged veterans, and disabled adults, the staff is recommending a continuation of the tenant-based rental assistance program. Home program administration for next fiscal year, a maximum of 10%, is $60,682. And the city is required to continue to provide funding allocation for the development of affordable housing under a Community Housing Development Organization, also known as a CHODO. Under the Emergency Solutions Grant, we'll be doing something a little different than providing just motel vouchers for shelter. HUD is now requiring that cities that receive Emergency Solutions Grant funding must provide a comprehensive program that not only provides some emergency shelter of some kind for individuals and families in their jurisdiction. In the case of the City of Inglewood, we don't have a shelter, so we had been using local motels to house homeless individuals who requested that assistance. But HUD is now requiring that the jurisdictions provide a comprehensive case management that requires that once a family or an individual comes in requesting assistance, and in the case of Inglewood, we require that they be formerly Inglewood residents. HUD is requiring that we provide them with whatever assistance may be necessary to get the individual family permanently and stably housed, which means if they need job training, we're to provide some assistance in obtaining job training. If they need child care in order to receive job training so that they can become gainfully employed and be able to move into permanent housing and support their housing, we're required to provide that. It's going to require comprehensive case management. Additionally, HUD is requiring that every single individual that comes in and receives assistance must be tracked through HUD's Homeless Management Information System, another acronym, HMIS. So we will be providing not only the services to get them housed, but we will have to follow them through, including helping to resolve whatever issues not only made them homeless, but would prevent them from becoming permanently housed. So if there is a need and assistance in finding housing within the city, be it rental or otherwise, security deposits to get an individual in a home, and perhaps even providing ongoing rental assistance. Those are all in the regulations now that HUD is requiring under the revised Emergency Solutions Grant. So the available funding is $326,000 to provide those services comprehensively. In consideration that the data that was gathered in the consolidated plan was primarily gathered by Mr. Pipkins, our grant coordinator, and we had an intern, Mr. Holzer from the University of Southern California, who provided all the data, conducted the analysis. I'd like for Mr. Pipkins to then, in conclusion, provide council with some recommendations that came as a result of an analysis of the data in the housing marketing data that was collected in the consolidated plan.
Thank you. The recommendations for the future: number one, increase grant writing for housing and community development activities to augment the city budget. Number two, increase coordination with federal, state, local government agencies for city-sponsored housing and community development projects and activities. Three, prepare an updated general plan, specific plan, and area plan along with the zoning code. And then four, increase the housing supply through smart growth solutions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any persons present who wish to address the council on the matter?
Good evening, council members, mayor. My name is Geraldine Noguera, and I'm an outreach coordinator with the Housing Rights Center, California's largest nonprofit organization dedicated to fighting housing discrimination. And it's a great honor to be here today and talk about our fair housing program, and we want to thank you once again for your continued support of fair housing. As you know, the Housing Rights Center is contracted with the City of Inglewood to provide free services for Inglewood residents. These services include free landlord-tenant counseling services, where landlords and tenants can receive information on their rights and responsibilities as under the California law. We also provide discrimination complaint investigation, where individuals who feel they are victims of housing discrimination can have their fair housing complaints investigated by our case analysts. If we uncover evidence of housing discrimination, we can propose potential solutions for our clients. We also have an outreach department, and we're responsible for raising awareness of fair housing laws and HRC programs and services. And every year we conduct 2 workshops for residents in Inglewood. We also host monthly walking clinics at the Inglewood Library, where individuals receive face-to-face counseling with members with our outreach coordinators. And lastly, our litigation department. We currently have attorneys on staff who can assist in litigating fair housing cases if appropriate. Our services are offered in English, Armenian, Cantonese, Korean, Mandarin, Russian, and Spanish. Last year we assisted, this is from October through currently June the 30th. That year, during that time period, it's not over yet, but we assisted 378 Inglewood residents. Over half of the residents who contacted us had issues ranging from evictions to substandard conditions. We also had 32 discrimination complaints. 56% of those had to do with physical disability discrimination. Out of the 378 Inglewood residents we assisted, 342 of them, more than half of these were substandard conditions. violations, evictions, and notices, and illegal lockouts and other things of that nature. I just wanted to share with you a quick success story we had for one of our Inglewood residents. One of our Inglewood clients was a senior with a disability, and she, through no fault of her own, her SSI check was going to come 2 weeks late. And when she told the landlord she could have an extension, the landlord said no and refused to grant her the extension, and was on his way to, and he gave her a 3-day notice for eviction, and he was actually going to file papers for an unlawful detainer. So we were able to assist her in the sense that the HRC got involved. We don't have to go to court every time, but we were able to get involved, and we were able to secure a reasonable accommodation request so that she could stay in her home and not be evicted. And just really quickly before I leave, we also submit public service announcements to Inglewood Channel 35, and we also do press releases in English and Spanish to the California Crusader, the Daily Breeze, Inglewood News, La Opinion. We do submit newsletters to the Inglewood City Manager's Office and Inglewood Chamber of Commerce. And lastly, we build partnerships with local community organizations such as the Youth Justice Coalition and Mothers Seeking Justice. And we staffed a booth at the Earth Day Festival at the Inglewood City Hall. And I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the HRC for your continued support and commitment to fair housing, and we hope we can continue working together and, to help Inglewood residents and fight housing discrimination. If anybody needs to talk to one of our counselors, our number is 1-800-477-5977. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was good. Take notes, everybody. You get an A.
Honorable Mayor and council members, my name is Rick Siebert. I'm with Thomas Safran and Associates. I'm here to support the consolidation plan for Eucalyptus Park Apartments. It is our intent to renovate all 91 units with new kitchens, bathrooms, paint, appliances, flooring, heating and cooling, and extend the affordability for additional 55 years. For Eucalyptus Park Apartments, we will also do community-wide improvements through the additional capital raised from the tax credit equity from our partners. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Inglewood family. I've been speaking to the grants people and well, the whole whatever you call it department about this consolidated situation that's before us, and it's going to serve the needs of a lot of residents, that, especially in District 1, because of their sound insulation. I got it the same problem at my place. I'm in 3, but you know, before the sound insulation can be done, sometimes other repairs have got to be done, and that's what's happened over there. I was trying to get that sound insulation when my mom was alive, and that was 10, 15 years ago, and so this has dragged on and on and on, and since then she passed away. And you know, I know it'll fill the needs of a lot of the people that live in the city of Inglewood.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Diane Sombrano, and there's several items within this that I am concerned, and I do understand that the long form was not sent out, and therefore a lot of these are based in assumptions. I think the funny one to me is the concept of public transit on the analysis of impediments on page 29. It says public transit plays an important role in analyzing impediments and all this kind of good stuff, and it says, however, 44% of households only have one car? Not in my neighborhood. Are you kidding me? I live across the street from a school. There are 26 cars parked regularly, and not a single one of them belongs to any of the people that live in our houses. I'm going to assume that they have parking space in their world, except, of course, the one house I've complained about forever that has 30 people living there and, of course, doesn't. Well, but whatever. Okay, but none of those, give me a break. Only 44% of households, 44% of households only have one car. I don't think that's exactly accurate. Is that a big issue? Well, I guess if we're going to sit here and say we absolutely positively are dependent upon Metro and the buses, but all we have to do is look around the corner over here and see that bus transit center we got the money for and doesn't get used a whole lot. And then, of course, there's that whole concept is, does everyone need to have a car if, in fact, not everybody has a two-income household? Both obviously do not have to go to work. All right, there's so many different pages on here. I would hope that everyone gets a copy of it. The one that I thought interesting, was 81%, I believe, of our current residents moved here after 1990. I don't think so. There's a truckload of items in here that do not seem to be entirely accurate. However, what we have said we want to use the funding for seems pretty decent, except for all this affordable housing we're allowing others to profit from. Highlight others, people not from our community. They're getting the 35 years worth of subsidy. They're not from our community. We're supporting someone else getting rich. And we're doing it over and over and over again. And that irritates me. We're worried about the alcoholic issue, and you let St. Ernst get torn down to build high-end homes. You let the hospital go to something else. That could have been used. We're not creative, are we?
Is there any further public comment? Please come forward, folks. It really wouldn't hurt to come on and line up, folks.
You know, there were a couple things that I was concerned with that this is going to HUD, the federal government, with regard to the city of Inglewood. And that was on page 31. They were talking about there's a limited amount of land available for housing, therefore the supply, demand, cost of the few remaining housing opportunities. And then went on to talk about 1990 supply was available of housing has decreased significantly. Well, you know, I really wonder about that, because we have all this vacant land here that they have not built out yet. All those properties that I guess we once owned, that now I guess is going to go back to the state or sold to whomever. But we do have a lot of vacant property here, and so I don't know that that's quite truthful as they go forward. You know, another thing that concerns me is that they were talking about $300,000 for repair of the streets, and another $300,000 repair of the sidewalks and stuff. But yet and still, they have over $200 million or $2 million, whatever it was, for Vincent Park, and that sod over there. That I think, since they haven't used it in all this time, it should be rolled over to the repair of some of these streets and sidewalks, as I have talked about for many years and many council meetings here. The handicap access sidewalks in the first district, you know, it's just it's a shame that they haven't been put in. I mean, they're just not there. And you know, they're talking about all this crazy money for sod or whatever. I think that those monies would be better spent for the streets or the sidewalks here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
My name is Alfonso Parker Jr. Earlier, I won't go into who said it. We all heard it, and you did too. You had a bar chart up there about 20 minutes ago where the gentleman showed that for the 2010 census, which is 2010, plus 3 more years, 2013, and you put a budget up there, and you compared it to a much lesser chart time frame, which was 1962, I think he stated. Now, I have a problem with the way you put your numbers together, because I was listening to the young lady talk about numbers crunching. Now, how do you compare a bar chart that's through the roof, requiring a larger budget, against, for one decade of census, plus 13 years, whatever, because they're projecting the extra years for the present, against a 1962, you're talking about 50 years of census, and you're combining that, and you're playing jokes with the numbers to accomplish a goal, which is higher expenditures in a shorter period, and then you're showing the difference, how the expansion happened. The expansion time is different. It's called cooking the books to me. Okay? Playing with statistics.
Ms. Austin? Okay. Well, we close public comment. Council input. Councilman Stevens?
Yes, well, I would just like to say that, Ms. Thigpen, I would like to ask you this question. When we're dealing with the comprehensive case management plan, does it require us to actually establish a physical shelter here in the city of Inglewood, or can staff simply operate? It doesn't require us to operate a shelter here, does it?
No, it does not. We were using motels.
Because it almost sounded as though you were implying that we needed to open a shelter.
No.
Okay. So I just wanted to establish that. So, because then the next question would be, which district do we put it in? Okay. So now, my next question to you is this. In reference to increasing of grant writing, how are we coming along with that at this time?
It's a recommendation to the city overall, so that's something that would be directed to the city manager's office.
Okay. I would just like to make a recommendation that we need to not only apply for more grants, not only through your department, through other departments also. Colleagues, I'm going to conclude with this. I want to thank you very much for allocating the money for Sentinel Park for the lighting. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that all of you can hopefully enjoy Sentinel Park. They have a lot of great hills. It's not just flat ground. Many of us are all trying to exercise more in the city of Inglewood. And also those of you who have code violations, the Cavalry is on its way to provide you with more funding so that your homes can qualify for sound insulation. With that, I'm going to conclude, and I want to thank you, colleagues, for that increase in allocation for District 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Dunlap?
Yes, thank you. Actually, just a quick question on page 9. Well, actually, since it's not actually page 9, I don't know what report it is.
Of the consolidated plan?
Section 2. But it's way in the middle. It says page 9, but it's way deep into the document.
It's of the appendix. Is it part of the analysis of impediments?
Section 1, introduction. Let's stick in this. Page 9 of that.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a general comment while you're looking. I look forward to everything that we have listed here getting accomplished with regard to the street repair, sidewalks, everything that we have here. The home funds that are being used to rehabilitate the senior housing, 811 Eucalyptus, the additional work for North Park. Look forward to that. The bathroom is currently under construction, as many of you know. It just kind of started. But all of these things we look forward to. And there's a lot of community interest in these, which is why we have the community meetings. Did you find that?
Page 9, I believe it's at the top, say a table, race and ethnicity?
Yes. Why are the figures? I can understand why they might be a little bit off, and I'm not sure if this was a table provided to us. But for instance, say race and ethnicity, it says Black or African American, 43.9%, Latino, 50.6%, white 23.3%, Asian 1.4%, American Indian 0.7%, Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander 0.3%, other 26.3%, two or more races 4.1%, 150. It adds up to 150%. So are some people counted in more than one category?
Yes, some Latino races, Latino ethnicities. Some folks consider themselves Latino and white, or Latino and black. So it does include some mixed races.
Okay, so then how do they get the actual population correct of 109,000?
Damon's trying to get your attention. Damon.
Mr. Pipkins.
Good evening, Councilwoman Dunlap. Thank you. Basically, the Latino portion here, the 55,449, 50%, that's not actually, I guess we should have moved it out. It's a separate category from race. So they're...
Oh, actually, if you took that out, it would be exactly
Yeah.
100%. Oh, okay.
And then of all of the total categories for race, then 50.6% of those people consider themselves Hispanic. It's a census
Okay, well,
definition.
if you took out the 50.6% you have listed as Latino, it would be exactly 100% of the respondents. However, if you took out Latino, then how do we know the total number of Latino in the... Because then it's not identified.
Well, it is in that, I mean, there are 55,449 people that consider themselves Hispanic or Latino of any race.
Mm-hmm.
So then if you take that out, and they could be Latino and black, Latino and white, Latino and Asian, they could pick any other race in addition to having a Hispanic heritage.
What is the majority? What ethnic group is the majority in the city of Inglewood as of the recent census?
Well, because it's so tricky, I mean, 50.6% of people consider themselves Hispanic. So they would be a majority. And
The ethnic majority in the city of Inglewood.
yeah, but they could be any race. I don't know if you get that. Okay.
You're trying to make it too specific.
Latin America, you have...
Okay, hold on.
Folks.
No, the thing is that he's trying to explain that in Latin America, there's a diverse population equal to the one we have. There's black Latinos, there's even some Asian Latinos, various denominations, demographics. So those, we actually have the choice both on the census and on various applications. When you push it, you actually have a second choice where you can even go further into detail. That's what he's trying to explain.
Yeah.
Whether or not that leads to the answer that Ms. Dunlap is seeking, I don't know, but that is what you're trying to say, right?
Yes. So of everyone in the community, 50.6% of people consider themselves of Hispanic origin. Okay, and then whatever race they are, that's what they consider themselves.
Okay, so
to be.
Latino would be the dominant majority. Second would be African American. Third would be, since I've closed my book, third would be
White.
White. And then other than white, and then American Indian, and Native Hawaiian.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Okay.
hopefully that
All
adds
right.
some clarity.
Thank you. Once again, Mayor, I look forward to these improvements being made. These are the types of improvements that the people in the community look forward to, specifically when it comes to street repair, sidewalk repair, the disabled access ramps at the corners, and work at our parks and senior delivered meals and so forth. So thank you very much.
Councilman Morales.
Thank you. I'll just briefly follow. We've pretty much discussed all the points. I want to thank you for the work you put into the report, both of you. I know we've seen this before. I know that other staff is here. I appreciate it. We've discussed this fully. There are some projects here that have been waiting for a very long time. We look forward to those. Aside from the streets and sidewalk, which are imperative at this point, we have the fields at Ed Vincent Park, which are going to get used just an abundance of time for a variety of different sports, both football, soccer, etc. So those are things that the lighting there, as Councilman Stevens pointed out, has been drastically diminished. That's going to be a big deal. So those are things that are completely impact the quality of life here. So I just wanted to say they're long overdue, and I appreciate us getting to this point. Look forward to them. Thank you.
Councilman Franklin.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I won't be long either. It just goes to show you how we can get a backlash when we had a chance to identify our true population in the city of Inglewood, and many of the residents chose not to do that. And so as a consequence, and we've shared repeatedly, that if you didn't take and complete the U.S. Census for 2010, it would have a direct impact on the benefits that we would get from the federal government. And this is one of those examples that we've heard here this evening. Exactly what we kept saying was critical is now becoming a reality. And so as a consequence, we now got the numbers. We're stuck with these numbers for 10 years. And you've also heard the fact that in their assessment, the housing element has not changed since the year 2000. And as my neighbor indicated before, parking is atrocious in certain parts of the city. And so when you talk about there's an average of one vehicle per household, I wonder what city they evaluated, because we have that issue big time. I also want to acknowledge the fact that, first of all, thank staff for your due diligence on how to contain cost. When you brought up the fact with reference to the tenant-based rental assistance, on how that the $100,000 plus would have left into the project for outside sourcing, you're now able to do that in-house at a cost of only $30,000. So I commend you for that. And also, I just want to reach out to the Thomas Safran and Associates. They did a project before on Regent that I got stuck in a brand new elevator. I want to make sure that this new project for Eucalyptus Park Apartments, where are you? That will not be a problem for them as well. And then finally, on another side note, with the North Park improvements, please tell me that there's going to be doors on the restrooms.
Yes, the councilwoman has seen to that.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Ms. Thigpen, you and your staff did an excellent job. You know, your job is not always the easiest, but Mr. Pipkin, Ms. Thigpen, thank you very much. All the things that we would expect to see, we saw. I want to echo Councilman Franklin, and I want everyone to remember how important the census is. It determines the distribution of certain federal funds, and so it's very important that we be counted, and that's why we end up with some anomalies like 44% of the households having one vehicle because we don't have full participation. But for your work and what this will represent in actual concrete results for the residents, I thank you. Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. Consent calendar. Item 2.
Move item 2.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Dunlap.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. DR1.
Staff report recommending approval of a memorandum of
Folks.
understanding with the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority to receive funding for the Century Park Mobility Improvement Project.
Move item 1 and 2.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council member Stevens.
Comment.
Go ahead, comment.
Excuse me. I apologize. We're going to wait further reading, correct?
No, we're just voting.
Just voting?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I have a question for Mr. Lockhart, if I can.
Mr. Lockhart. Oh, no, actually, go your question.
Okay. My question is this. I understand my colleague from District 3. He wants us to start at the 405 freeway. Is there any way that we could possibly start simultaneously, beginning at Van Ness and working our way towards the center, where we would, is that possible?
We've asked our design consultant, ACOM, to look at those kind of alternatives, and we'll be considering those further. The matter before you tonight is simply approving a memorandum of understanding with the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority to provide partial funding for the project. As indicated in the staff report, the amount of the one-time grant would be $3,223,025 with a 37.5% revenue share relative to 62%
Is any of this funding from Los Angeles World Airports?
From Los Angeles Airport?
Any of it, yes.
Not that's associated with this particular grant. The grant comes from Prop C funding, the 1990 1/2 cent sales tax approved by the voters of Los Angeles to fund specific kinds of transportation improvements.
Okay, so in the document, it identified a bonding source that we have a bonding. We had a bonding source there where we have floated bonds on the market. Is that correct? Through our redevelopment agency, is that where the funding came from? The city
Sorry.
manager?
What was the question?
Okay. In the document, it identified that we had a component dealing with bonds that the city had floated. Now, these bonds, were they related to our redevelopment agency?
Yes, they were. They're part of the $30 million of redevelopment funds that you approved in our ROPS.
Okay. So the $30 million, Mr. Lockhart, this is the question. The $30 million, is that for the total span of Century Boulevard from the 405 freeway to Van Ness?
Yes, sir.
Totally, 30 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then, with this allocation here, how far are we going to be able to, with this funding that we have right here, how far?
This is only $5 million, right?
Well, it's additional, the 3.2 million in round numbers. It basically augments the 30 million that the city has already reserved for the project.
Okay. Now, of that 30 million, is any of that Los Angeles World Airport's money?
No.
No?
No.
None of it?
No, that money is, again, those are monies that we use from our tax increment and our bond refinancing proceeds to the tune of $30 million.
Okay, because if we had not used it, we would have had to return the money to the state of California, correct? This is part of our redevelopment funding. Okay. So with minute 43 seconds left, this is my question. Under our settlement agreement with Los Angeles World Airports, we were allocated a certain amount of money for the repaving, redevelopment of Century Boulevard. Now, this is what it is. Now, I'm not saying that we should take this money and send it back to the state of California. What I'm at is that I'm trying to get most bang for my buck, for the buck here. Now, can this funding be spent on any other street, or are we just locked into simply spending it on Century Boulevard?
No, we're locked in. When you approve the ROPS, we informed the state basically that we would be spending this money in this manner, and any change to that would create some difficulties.
Okay, I understand. But the component that's not affiliated with the ROPS, must we spend it on Century Boulevard?
The entire $30 million.
Yeah, I'm thinking if we have this funding that's available through Los Angeles World Airports, if there's a component of this that is not required, that we spend it. What I'm asking is this: is that in the settlement agreement with Los Angeles World Airports, which expires 2015, there is funding available for Century Boulevard. What I'm asking is, can we substitute a component that is not affiliated with the ROPS, and perhaps we could use that money that is not connected with the ROPS of this on another street, let's say La Brea or somewhere else, perhaps on residential neighborhoods?
I believe the answer is no, but let me look into that and see if that's possible. I'm not familiar with the LAWA settlement money that may have been allocated for Century, and I'll look into that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Lockhart, do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't have any additional information. I'm not informed on the settlement agreement that took place before I arrived here in Inglewood.
Okay. All right then. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Any other comment?
Nothing.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Dunlap?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Franklin?
Absolutely aye.
Mayor Buds?
Aye. 01.
Staff report recommending adoption of ordinance number 1215 to approve zone change 129 to rezone property at 8090 South Crenshaw from R1 single family resident to R3 multiple family residential.
Move motion, waive further reading.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Councilmember Stevens?
Well, I'd like to ask staff a question.
We're
Ms.
just
Tatum?
waiting further reading.
We're waiving further reading, correct?
Yes.
Okay, aye.
Dunlap?
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butts.
Aye. Now, your question for staff?
Yes, I have a question. Ms. Tatum, this item, if you could just simply, are you still of the position that a covenant could not be voluntarily placed on this property by the owner?
The request that has been recommended by the Planning Commission is to modify the zoning of this property to rezone it from R3 to R1. The basis for them recommending that is, I'm sorry, let me go back 1 second. When you change the zoning of a property, you are changing the zoning to allow any use that's permitted within that zone to occur on the property. And accordingly, you can't, it's not appropriate or legal to change the zone, which would otherwise give them rights, and then you turn around and say, but you can't avail yourself of those rights, whether or not they have any intention of doing that. It's like giving it on one hand and taking it away on the other, and legally you can't say we're going to change your zone, but you can't do what that new zoning otherwise permits anybody else to do if they have that zone.
Okay,
so you can't be arbitrary.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you this question, just yes or no. Are we under any obligation to change the zoning of this property?
You are not under any obligation.
We are not.
That's correct. Any
Okay.
property owner has the right to request the zone change to facilitate a proposed use of their property.
Okay.
And in this case, we are responding to their request to rezone the property.
All right. And the issue here is that they wish to take the frontage of the property is R3, and they wish to take the homes that are in back of it, which they purchased, which are R1, and convert them to R3. So the entire lot is R3, correct?
They are requesting, they own about 48,000 square feet of property.
Yes, wait a minute. I just asked you a simple question. Are they looking to convert the R1 portion to R3?
They are looking to convert the R1 portion to R3 for the purpose of rehabilitating the property, improving the property so that they may continue the existing
Let me
use.
ask you this question, Ms. Tatum. And you know you're not a realtor, I don't think, are you?
No.
Do you think that
I'm a
this will
planner.
increase? Do you think us changing the zone will increase the value of the property
Not,
to R3?
not necessarily. I think we'd
Not
have to do,
necessarily.
no.
That's
An
a maybe,
appraisal
right?
would determine that because in
Okay, I understand.
a change of the actual land use or a change of the zoning typically has some incremental value by going from R1 to R3, but I think it depends upon the market. And right now, as long as the existing use of the property remains, which is what their proposal is, they wouldn't necessarily see an increase in the property value.
Okay, Ms. Tatum.
Necessarily, but I'm not a realtor.
We differ on that opinion. Colleagues, this is the issue for myself as well as the residents. As a covenant is defined, can be a deed restriction, but it isn't always. We've gone over this last time. The main point is that the covenant, a deed restriction, I would recommend, the residents would recommend that one be placed upon this property because, as was stated at the microphone, if ability first, this has nothing to do with what they do. And by the way, they are a nonprofit. Is that correct, Ms. Tatum?
I believe they are.
Yes, they are a nonprofit. Therefore, there is, colleagues, no sales tax benefit to the city in changing this property. The issue here for myself is, as well as the resident, is that without a deed restriction, if they were to sell the property then could be developed into multi-family, high-density housing. And high-density has a very negative impact, as you heard Ms. Sembrano state, in her neighborhood. I grew up on 113th Street, bumper-to-bumper cars, based upon high-density housing that has been built there in just the last, I say, 10 years. 30-unit apartment buildings, and on this site, as staff had stated, 65 to 75 units, 73 units could be built on this site. As a result, Mr. Jackson stated it right there. So here's the solution to here's my solution to the problem, colleagues. Is this? As you see here, Mr. Schultz has stated in this communication, he stated, as I stated on at the June 5th, 2012 City Councilman, the Ability Force First is willing to attach a covenant to our 8090 Crenshaw property, stating that we will not build multifamily housing. Well, that's fine, but the key word there is we. We will not. What happens if they sell the property? Therefore, what I did was, I sent this communication to the executive officer, the CEO sitting right here, asking them simply to sign this document. This is a, Ms. Tatum, colleagues? Let's talk to my colleagues here, because they're the ones that are going to make the decision on this. This is simply a grant covenant, simply stating what they have stated at the podium, that they wish for this property to remain as it is today. They're simply going to make corrections. The only point that is stated in this document is that in this covenant that they would simply sign and record with the Los Angeles Recorder's Office before we grant them a zone change. It just simply states that this property, in fact, if sold, there will not be multifamily housing built upon the site. This is it right here. And Miss Lori Gorimi? Gay Jamie? You've seen this. I sent this to you today. Would you be willing to sign this document? It is exactly based upon what you stated here. I came to your office. I explained to you my concerns. I thought that you would at least submit some type of covenant for us to at least be cruised. Instead, what I have here is basically that you wish for it to go through the entire process, then present the document of what the grant deed restriction would be. And to me, it's putting the cart before the horse. We should have whatever grant deed restriction or covenant that you are willing to present to prepare. We should be able to take a look at it to see just exactly what it states and what it's going to say. Since you have not prepared one, okay, I took the liberty of preparing one for you. So you've seen it. Are you willing to sign it? Go right ahead.
We're willing to pledge that Ability First is not planning to build any apartment building on this property. As I stated earlier, we've been running the same programs there since 1976. We have community centers in various other communities. Pasadena, we've been since the 60s. Claremont, I think, goes back almost as far. Woodland Hills, we've been there for 50 years. I mean, we like to go into a community and stay. As you heard from a lot of people speaking very highly of our services here, we have a great following. We just want to build a new building. We can't continue to operate in these buildings that were built in the 1930s to be single residents. Nope. So that was our only reason going to the city for permission to build a new building, and we were told we need to change it to R3. We don't care what it's zoned. We don't necessarily care what the property value is. We have no plans to sell it, and that's what Mr. Schultz thought he was saying that day, June, whatever the date was. So he did not understand that you were asking us to place a covenant on the property in perpetuity that no one could ever build an apartment building there.
Well, the point is that you say you wish to stay in our community.
Yes.
The issue is that what guarantee can you offer us that you will? You have an executive board. If they decide next year that because this now has gone from an R1 lots attached to an R3, and now it's become more valuable being an R3, and they decide, well, we need to liquidate this property, and we can purchase another property at another location. You've left other facilities already,
yeah, as I told you, we've
left
one in the 85 years, that we've sold.
But when did you
we
do
have
that?
Another property. We've been at it for 65 years. I mean, no one can say what's going to happen, unforeseen challenges in the future. And
I'm not against your organization.
Oh, I understand.
But the issue is that I have a community that I have to protect, and my colleagues have to protect. Mm-hmm. The neighborhood that I grew up in, between Mr. Franklin's district, between Yukon and Doty, there is an apartment. Yes, Lamoli and Yukon. There is an apartment building that is pink on the southern side, and that apartment building has, I believe it is over 25, 30 units in there. Right. There are other apartment buildings on other streets in that same neighborhood. And so, excuse me, colleagues, I apologize for running over, but I just want to say this for the record. I'm not against your organization, but that is not the issue. Mm-hmm. The issue is the zone change. Mm-hmm. And I need, as a council person for this district, which this building is in, I simply need a guarantee from your organization that my community that I represent is not going to be negatively impacted if you liquidate, if you sell that property. And I'm asking you to simply sign this covenant. That's all it is. Very simple, very basic. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Councilwoman Dunlap. Councilman, was there any other comment?
I might have been, but please call on him. I didn't ask you.
Councilman Morales.
There are some comments in the staff report which says that there will be a covenant signed. Did I get the updated version?
You do have the updated version. However, today's correspondence from Ability First and Mrs. Ganjimi, her explanation was that they didn't understand when they were asked if they'd be willing to commit that they would remain and maintain their existing operation, that they were willing to commit to that. However, she did not understand that the city was asking them to sign a covenant to encumber the property. So the staff report was based upon our understanding at the time. So the letter that you received today, came in your packet, just clarified that their understanding of their commitment to maintain the Ability
So somebody
First.
used the word covenant and they should have never used the word
That's correct.
covenant, is basically what you're saying.
That's correct.
I do recall that the word was used here, and I believe it was said, but, that being said, no action was taking place. I understand the community's concerns. Let's go back. It appears that the Ability First, what their intentions are, is to renovate some existing buildings and expand their facilities for the same particular use. They're not necessarily saying, hey, let's change the zoning to give us an opportunity to expand our uses. They're basically saying, this is what we want to do. They came to the city, and there was a reason that the city turned around and said, you know what, you cannot do this unless we change the zones. For the purpose of clarifying how we got here, can you explain what that was?
Yes. Currently, the front half of the property is zoned R3. About 32 or so of those square feet are zoned R3. Mm-hmm. The rear part, about 15 or so thousand, is zoned R1. The use, when it was established back in 1970, was done, and it's now a legal non-conforming use. Right. In order to upgrade, expand that use, the code says the entire property has to be brought up to code, meaning all of the zoning has to be brought up to code, and that's what they're attempting to do. So if the council should approve this zone change, it would allow them to proceed with the site plan review and PAD to accommodate the upgrade that they're requesting. I should, if I could just make one other point. Today, because the general plan for the city has the entire Crenshaw corridor designated for medium density residential, not high density residential. And the city's objective should always be to make sure to make the zoning consistent with the general plan. And when the city council adopted that general plan designation along Crenshaw for that medium density residential use, that they were acknowledging that single family use is not an appropriate use adjacent to that major corridor. So based upon their current zoning on the front part of the property, if they had an interest in building multifamily, they could do it today.
They could do it
because
today.
Their zoning allows it. And they could use the rear part, which is R1, for parking. So if they had any desire to do that, they could do it today without any action from the council.
That was my next point, that currently it's zoned for a particular purpose, and they would be allowed by right without coming here to build what they wanted to build based on those uses.
That's correct.
If they so chose. But going further in terms of how this particular issue we deal with it, because whenever a use is grandfathered in, basically it is that something changed in terms of the laws. That particular type of use is no longer used, but because you were there before this law passed, you get to stay. But the minute you want to add a wall or add another second story to your business, albeit excellent business, you won't be allowed to do it until you come up to code, basically. That's is correct. What it is. Now, you tell me if we can do this, but obviously they don't care if the zoning changes to begin with. But if there's an avenue that we can go in terms of saying, hey, if you are currently grandfathered into a particular use and you don't intend to change the use, you just intend to renovate to a certain, let's say, 800 square feet addition, no other whatever, that would somehow be allowed. Is there a way that we can create that kind of option? Because I know it's been done in the past in terms of if you get grandfathered in, right, you have to do that. But you would, there's maybe a caveat that says, but if you are renovating merely to upgrade the property and add no more than X square feet, you would still be allowed to do that, because what we're doing is we're saying you can't do that right now because you got grandfathered in. You see what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying. Unfortunately, the way the code is currently written, the non-conforming use does give you some very little and very minimal leeway, but
Ms.
based
Tatum,
on
I
what...
guess what I'm asking is, I should state, I completely understand that currently the code does not allow that. I'm saying an easier fix might be, without changing the zoning, to expand on the possibilities of the code, to change the code to say, if the use is not going to change and you add no more than X number of square feet, you would be allowed to do that and maintain the use. I get it. The code doesn't allow it right now. Can we change the code to allow it?
You could change the code, however, because you have to be partial in how the code is administered. You cannot change the code where it would only apply to one property, because anybody else that has that zone should get the same benefit.
I know,
So,
which obviously, we're not talking about all the collateral kind of damage that would cause or whatever. I'm just asking if that's an option that we could look into, because
it's not a practical or feasible option, because if we were to try to craft it to fit just that one property, it would be unfair to every other property that was in a similar situation. So unfortunately, the code isn't a sharp tool.
No.
It's fairly
and of course
blunt.
we can't spot zone
Right,
and that stuff. I get it. I'm trying to work through a way, because we have an actual applicant who's saying, hey, we tried to do it without changing this thing. You wouldn't let us. So that's what I'm trying to work with here, because the intention is there, and that's a good place to start. Thanks, Mayor. I know you had some comments.
That's okay. I'll go on. Wait.
Okay.
Councilman Franklin?
Well, I'm glad to hear that Councilman Morales trying to vet a remedy or a solution, and it's unfortunate that this council has been plagued in the city but not being business friendly, and that here we have a business, a well-ran business since 1973, that says, look, these were two homes that has now been converted for use for our youth and for adult daycare services. And the two-story unit is not applicable to the artistic youth and adults that need to be there, which forces them to have to use the upper stairs area for administrative purposes and not getting the full value of the property to be able to assist the good and welfare of this community. And so as a consequence, they did come. For the last 2 years, they've been working on this project and doing their fundraising to say, we got the money. We're not asking for the money from the city. We got that. All we're trying to do now is let us build this one building that will now accommodate the services that they provide for our community. And so as a consequence, the fact of the comment raised about trying to put a covenant on the property, we understand that we can't force anyone to do that. Otherwise, it falls under double standards. And also, we heard you loud and clear that once you change the zone, they have to be treated the same. And so as a consequence, that this council has to make a decision that we keep this operation here in Inglewood, or they're going to go somewhere else, and we will lose the service that many of the special use of our children and adults need. They don't have that luxury of being able to go to and fro at will. They go to an environment that is conducive to their needs. And so I understand we're perplexed, but more importantly, I think it's critical that this council work with this organization to identify that this is a bona fide stakeholder in this community, and has proven that by being here over decades of operation and very successful operation, and that we continue to allow them to operate. So I'm through. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, yes, thank you. I agree with just about everything that's been said here. They wanted to tear down 3 buildings that were old, didn't meet their needs because one has a second story. They serve disabled adults and children. They need to make an ADA compliant building. They want to build a 1-story. And they came to the city and said, this is what we would like to do, and it's the city that came up with the R3 zoning. It's the city that came up with all of this. I think I want to make that clear. They never came to us and said, we want to change our R1 to R3. I want to make that clear because there's been some confusion, and I want to make sure that the residents understand that they've never asked for R3, ever. They just want to build a one-story building where they can serve their clients better. And their clients, the majority of them are Inglewood residents, adults and children. And I think all of us have been there on numerous occasions. We think very highly of the program. I believe that we need to be creative, as was suggested, to see what we can do. I know we can't do spot zoning, but maybe I don't think they would object. Everybody up here supports your project. It's a way of doing it in such a fashion that future generations of residents are going to be protected, and even though you may be there forever. So I would like to suggest, Mayor, that staff continue to take a look at this with regard to not changing the zoning, keeping it as it is today, and what can we do as a city with regard to anything else, as Councilman Morales mentioned, to make it work. Is it the parking? Is that part of the problem, putting in a parking lot on R1?
A parking lot can go on R1 when it's associated with a use that's otherwise permitted, and that's why the zone change is necessary, to allow them to go through the process to allow the adult daycare use that currently exists there, because right now the R1 zone does not allow that use. So when they came to us to say what they wanted to do, we said, here's what's required in order to get you the appropriate processes. I can assure you that anytime staff is faced with a request, we've done exactly what you're asking us to do, to be creative, to look for ways to accommodate what they want to do, and that's the proposal that's before you tonight.
I understand that, but it's not working. Meaning it's not, I understand the work that you've done, but it's not satisfying all the needs that have been brought before this council right now. So,
could I make one other point?
Just a moment,
sure.
if I may. With regard to, once again, changing our municipal code, Councilman Morales, as you suggested, what can we do to keep the same zoning? I'd like you to revisit that. Maybe we can do something with regard to a non-conforming use that's been in effect for so many years. And that could apply citywide. I mean, how many non-conforming uses have been in effect for so many years, currently actively working in that capacity, and just doing, improving it. I mean, I'm just saying, as it is now, I don't think this body is in support of changing it to R3. They don't even want R3. They just want to do their project. Let's come up with something to have them do the project, Mayor. And I would just ask that staff go back and see if they can come up with a solution as has been recommended. I think that's the best plan.
Okay. Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, I have two questions. One, is it impossible for them to give them a variance?
It is impossible to give them a variance to accommodate the use. And the other issue, when we were considering their request to facilitate what they wanted to do, they were very clear that there is a very specific time frame for them to accomplish it based upon some funding issues that they have, and they could probably speak more specifically to that. That's the other reason that when we started this process, the idea was that they can complete the zone change process and be able to get forward to get into to continue the process. We understood that if you start the process over again and go back and look at a potential code amendment, that would take additional time. But again, that's the council's discretion, but we've been advised by them that they wanted the process to go forward because of some timing constraints.
Okay, I have one more question. Since the council has the authority to change the code, and I understand that you're saying we can't discriminate, and any change we make would have to be available for anyone else similarly situated. But if we decided to change the code to read that any nonprofit entity that services disabled adults and children that's been in business for more than 20 years would be eligible for this variance, is that not within our power? Mr. City Attorney, is that within our power?
that's possibly within your power, but it may, as I think the Ms. Tatum is pointing out, be very problematical, and it probably require more of an analysis. I don't think right now I could just say what the domino effect of that would be.
All right. So, Ms. Tatum, in your opinion, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't have a comment. I was just agreeing that we can certainly look at any number of criteria, but as the city attorney has indicated, we would need to look at the implications on a citywide basis. But we could certainly go back and consider changing the non-conforming provisions to put in a different set of criteria, being mindful of what their potential implication is on a citywide basis.
And I think we're getting there. Councilman Morales.
I just have one question. If they were under the circumstance where the building was deemed unsafe for an earthquake today, what would be their avenue to improvement?
If the building were deemed to be unsafe, that's a tough question for me to answer, but I'll take a stab at it. They would be allowed to make the building safe, but that doesn't mean changing the footprint and moving into a new building. They would just be obligated to make the current building safe if it were deemed unsafe.
So Ms. Tatum, I think that you get the directions clear. We want to accommodate them. We also want them to be able to start working on their site plan. But we want to be certain that we come up with a solution that preserves the R1 safety for the residents, but gives them the ability first to build what they want to build. And I don't think that's impossible.
Okay. We can certainly go back and take a look at that.
And Mayor?
Yes.
Would you also take a look at the law or the ordinance that this council adopted that I introduced? Had to do with the residents that owned property prior to, I think it was 1976, and that they wanted to do improvements, but because it was a non-conforming use, that these individuals were grandfathered, which allowed them to move forward on their improvements of their property.
Are you speaking of a specific location or specific property, or just generally?
That was citywide.
Then that's exactly per the direction of the council to go back and revisit the non-conforming standards.
So
that's exactly what we would be looking at.
However, that one was only 400 square feet.
But that was not big enough. But I believe that's the will of the body. Is that right?
Yes.
To go back and visit. And secondly, and equally important, I believe there's work they need to do concurrently as far as their site plan. Is that right?
They are required to go through a site plan review process.
Can we do a parallel process where they're allowed to proceed forward pending, this change without changing the zoning?
If they are willing to just sign a waiver to complete the site plan review process and go into building plan check we require a risk so that they're doing it at their own risk. So should the council not make the changes that facilitate them, the burden is on them, or the liability is on them.
That?
Yeah, let's have her say it on the record, Mayor.
Okay. Please come to the mic and say it for posterity. So you understand the proposal is that you'd be willing to sign a waiver that says you're willing to proceed with your plans and site plan activities pending this potential change in the code to allow you to move forward without the zoning change, but understanding that you would hold the city harmless if it were not be able to be accomplished.
Yeah, this allows you to expedite. Instead of waiting,
Yes.
you can start sort of double tracking.
And I think you see the will of the body.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
All right, she says yes. All right.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, though, staff is now going to
come back.
Mm-hmm. As I understood it, we want to facilitate allowing them to move forward and changing the code to accommodate that.
Exactly.
Using appropriate criteria that could be applied
That's
citywide.
Correct. You won.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tatum. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tatum.
It's not a public hearing.
How long are they?
We're on CM1. Mr. City Manager, any reports?
Yes, Mayor, City Council, I'd like to use my time to address a question that was raised earlier from Councilmember Stevens regarding our pass-through payments, tax increment pass-through pays.
Could we have order in the chamber, please?
Regarding our tax increment pass-through payments to the county. The councilmember was correct. Those pass-through payments were due July 12th. However, on July 11th, we received a letter from the county indicating that the Department of Finance had misinterpreted the guidelines, and as a result, our pass-through payments are not due until January of 2013. The amount that we will be paying will be about $1.2 million. There's no interest that will be charged to us because of, it's not basically late. The Department of Finance.
Very good.
That was my understanding.
Right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Fields.
Okay. A1.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. CS1 was pulled, CS2 was pulled. There was a closed session held as to CS3 closed session, personnel exemption under Government Code Section 54957, performance evaluation of the city attorney. Discussions were held, however, no final action was taken. And that concludes the reports out of closed session for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Madam City Clerk, CC1.
No comments, thank you.
Oh, okay. A3, Mr. City Attorney.
Well, no verbal reports, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. The City Treasurer is not present. CI1.
Council initiative by...
Oh, Madam City Clerk, I'm sorry. Did you have a report?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Okay, CI1.
Initiative by Councilmember Stevens to reaffirm the end-of-block policy for the City of Inglewood Residential Sound Installation Department.
Councilor Stevens.
Yes, colleagues, this is primarily, this is dealing with, of course, sound insulation and our policy within our city. Seems like, yeah, well, I'll have to just do this. What we have here in the city right now is that we've adopted a policy of a squared-off block. A squared-off block, which is not actually required under our settlement agreement with Los Angeles World Airports. This policy was established primarily by my predecessors, and they established this when it wasn't really necessary. End of block is what was agreed to in the settlement agreement with Los Angeles World Airports. And so what I am asking you to do is simply, I'll read this to you. City staff is directed to review homes eligible for end-of-block sound installation and provide a list of eligible homes to council. Estimate grant funds and existing funds that will become available to sound insulate end-of-block eligible homes by the year of 2015. Deadline for the 1992 contour and provide this information to council. Now, just so I can just pause on that. In 2015, it is proposed by Los Angeles World Airports that the contours are not going to get larger. They're actually going to get smaller. And with what's going on at Los Angeles World Airports at this time is that they are actually moving the northern runway complex to the north, the northern side. People who live on the contour adjacent to Manchester Boulevard, you live on that side, on the northern side of Manchester Boulevard, those planes now are, as we know, the planes are already flying in areas that they never did before, but the actual contour itself is going to be shifted. And when that happens, many of the people who are in the contour may very well find themselves out. Now, the settlement agreement expires in 2015. Now, unless we get an extension on it, that is the year that it's going to expire. What we have to do at this point is our sound insulation department has not, as far as I can ascertain, even exercised the policy of end-of-block. What our sound installations department's policy has been is that we would sound insulate all homes eligible inside of the existing 1992 noise contour. Then after we sound insulated all those homes, then they would work on end of block instead of working simultaneously, which is identified in the settlement agreement with Los Angeles World Airport. And so the settlement agreement clearly states that in the component of in the settlement agreement, Part A, it clearly states that end of block shall be completed by the City of Inglewood. But we operate our own sound installation program. And what I am asking for you colleagues to do is recognize the fact that if we in fact do not spend the money, then other jurisdictions will have access to the money for sound insulation for end of block. And so end of block, here it is right here, item 9 on page 30 of the settlement agreement. It says end of block soundproofing. El Segundo, Inglewood, and the County of Los Angeles may seek FAA approval to commence an end of block soundproofing program, under which if any residence on a particular block falls within the applicable noise contour for that block, then each resident in that block will be eligible for soundproofing. LAWA agrees to support the jurisdiction's request to the FAA for permission to use this portion of money identified in sections A1 and through A3 for this purpose. Now, understand, this document, settlement agreement, is something that I happen to fight for, and council have fought for, but more importantly, City of Inglewood itself fought for it. And in 2015, it expires. And if we do not utilize the money, then the money is gone. And if any other jurisdiction completes their program before us, and they decide they wish to have access to our money, there's a provision in this document that states that they can in fact utilize it. So I just feel that it's imperative that we take some sort of action or give direction to staff as to exercising our option of end-of-block program simultaneously with the sound insulation of people's homes. And remember, end-of-block applies to 4th Avenue, 3rd Avenue, 2nd, 1st, 7th, 11th Avenue, 10th Avenue in District 1. And it also applies to areas also in District 3 and 4. If a person lives on 102nd Street, 3rd, 103rd, 8th Avenue, 8th Avenue in District 4, 8th Avenue, 7th, 6th, 4th, and 3rd Avenue. On the southern side of 104th Street, Joyce Alexander and those people over there, those people, in fact, would be eligible for end of block. And they've waited so long for sound insulation. They've waited so long for their turn, as well as many of the people in the city who do qualify. And 2015 is our deadline. So I'm asking you, colleagues, to let's establish a policy and a direction to staff. And I'd like to hear your comments on this. Thank you.
Councilwoman Dunlap?
Yes. Actually, I'm glad this has been brought up at this time. We actually have some opinions on this from the past. They need to be revisited with regard to what we submitted. I know we submitted some things and they were rejected. And I think we resubmitted, but right now I really don't recall the specifics. So we need to have the people in the residential sound insulation bring forward that information. I think our attorney was Barbara Lickman. So we need to revisit that, take a look at it. Also, I would like to state that staff, some of these things, sometimes common sense comes into play. And that is, in addition to the end of block, the fact that the 1992 noise contour is going to expire in 2015, one would think that our staff would take a look at the projected 2015 noise contour and stop insulating homes in that contour because they're going to have money into the future, correct? Correct. After 2015, they're still going to get sound, and the money's still going to be there for them. We should be taking the money we have and insulating those homes which are going to be out. They should have the priority based on this new set of circumstances. Meaning, why would we continue spending money today for homes that money will be available for them after 2015? They're still on the list. They can still be insulated. When some people have been on the list for the same period of time, and if we don't do their homes by 2015, they're out. That's unconscionable for us to be doing anything here to eliminate anybody because we didn't act timely, because we weren't using common sense. So we need to take a look at this program, get these opinions and issues back with regard to the end of the block, and strategize what we're doing and make sure we're doing it to sound insulate as many homes as possible that are going to be excluded come 2015. and then look at the new projected noise contour. I think everybody on this body would agree to that, and I think there's been some complacency, and we need to get on it right away. So I support my colleagues' concerns, but we actually need to go to a step further. It's not just end of the block now, which definitely will be eliminated. Definitely will be eliminated in 2015, but there are many other homes that will be eliminated as well. And I, for one, would like to see a copy of the projected and the current as a visual. But then we need to get staff on this, and I think probably within 30 days there needs to be a full report made to this body, which is also a report to our constituency, the residents of this city, with regard to where we are and what we can do to accommodate as many families, as many homeowners as possible. So, thank you.
Councilman Morales.
Yeah, just briefly would like to say that this is obviously an issue we're all concerned with. End of the block has been contemplated for a very long time. Through our attorneys, we actually made significant communication back and forth both to FAA and LAWA, as Councilwoman Dunlap said. And the issue is still something that we're very concerned with. I agree with her that before we give additional direction to staff, let's take a look at where specifically the issue was left and what our options are. Perhaps directly from Ms. Lickman, who was handling the case for us, the issues for us. So that's how I would leave it. Of course, I appreciate Councilman Stevens bringing it up. I think before we give direction, we need to know where it stands all the way around. So those are my comments.
Councilman Franklin.
Well, the main issue is it's all about the Benjamins. Show me the money, and where can the money be appropriated? And so for years, this council has been pushing to try to get the end-of-the-block program implemented. However, you first of all have to deal with those that are pre-identified that is already under the flight path. And we're struggling to this day to meet the threshold needed to get by 2015, some 800 homes that are under the flight path that is identified by FAA and LAWA. It's great to talk about end of the block, but if you don't have the money and that the funding has not been dovetailed to assist the end of the block, then the ones that are screaming the loudest are those that are within the corridor, filled out the forms, were on the waiting list to have their homes improved, and they're not being done. So I clearly welcome, as my colleague stated, our professional outside law firm that handles the aircraft sound insulation program, Barbara Lichman, is bring us up to speed as to where we are, and then more importantly, where is the funding going to come? And I like Councilwoman Dunlap's comments about if in fact we can bifurcate the funding from those houses that are not under the restriction of the 2015, but yet funding can still be appropriated, then we as a council need to revisit that and make sure that those that fall within the corridor, as well as Councilman Stevens indicated, along the end of the block issue. And also, let's not forget, council members, of our discretionary funding, and we've pre-identified how that was going to be appropriated through the redevelopment agency staff as well. And so all that needs to be vetted, but all said and done, it's all about the money and how the money is going to be appropriated and how soon can the money be made available to be able to meet those needs that the residents have been harping about. You've heard how many of them have talked about by the time my home gets insulated, I'll be underground. And as a consequence, don't tell me about end of the block when in fact those that qualify that are meet the definition, just make sure the money gets appropriated and that we do our due diligence to make sure the homes get done as expeditiously as possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Councilman Stevens for the work you have always done on behalf of sound insulation, prior councils for the agreements that you negotiated, and I have to tell you that everybody up here is right, but here's the thing. This doesn't come in a vacuum. I've talked about before, prior councils have pushed more houses into design phase than funds were available to complete in construction. And that's where a lot of money went. Along the way, grant improvement plan audits weren't done. We lost our accessibility to LAWA funding. We're trying to recover that. So we push staff into a corner. The people that have had their houses designed and they want the work done, all of those are not in the disappearing contours, but they don't want to pass away before their work is done. We need to understand from staff where we are funding-wise to do any of this end-of-the-block stuff. And we need to remember there are people that have been waiting for years inside the contours that are not going to disappear, that are not going to be satisfied to say, nope, you'll wait another 4 or 5 years because we're going to only do the disappearing contours. So this is a balancing act. And it doesn't occur in a vacuum. It occurs in the context of decisions that have been made before, things that have not been done before. So it's not that simple. So I support the councilman's initiative, but I feel that we need to have more information as to whether or not it is practical and the implications it's going to have on people that have been waiting in design phase for a number of years. And so I think we need more information. Is that agreeable to you, Councilman?
Well, it's agreeable if we can have a specific date when staff will return. Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
When do you think staff could return with that?
Mr. Fields?
Mayor and City Council, we will be bringing back next week an item to approve our outside consultants contract. And at that meeting, we were planning on giving some background in terms of what we're doing with the program. And I think that we have enough time and information already on hand that we might be able to respond to these questions as part of that report next week.
Is 7 days enough time?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Thank you.
I would appreciate it. If you're going to do a PowerPoint,
I'm sure a PowerPoint will go.
then I would hope that staff would review the DVD of this meeting and make sure all our questions are answered.
Okay.
Mr.
That'd be
Fields,
great.
I'd
Thank you.
really rather give us, well, we need to approve that contract, but do you think 14 days would be more appropriate?
You know, the flexibility to extend it 14 days would be great in the event that we can't do it in 7 days.
I think we need to be comprehensive. This is something everyone's interested in.
I agree with 14 days.
14 days, all right.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And so, we are at public comments. Well, actually, appointments. Councilwoman Dunlap nominates and I appoint Denise Gonzalez to the District 2 seat in the Parking and Traffic Commission.
Move concurrence.
Second. Madam City Clerk.
Council members Stevens?
Aye.
Dunlap?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Franklin?
Aye.
Mayor Buds?
Aye. Any persons wishing to address the City Council on any matter connected with city business not elsewhere considered on the agenda may do so at this time. Could we line up, folks? It's after 10.
My name is Alfonso Parker Jr. I'm a Vietnam veteran, 66, 67. I heard earlier in the expenditures that you're allocating something like 25,000 or 25, whatever it was, dollars to the veterans here. We have a veterans organization, which you know over there on Hendry. These veterans, even some of the World War II veterans, we have hundreds of thousands of dollars coming to us that the Veterans Administration will not release. By the way, the Veterans Administration is the United States Army. It has always been that way since Herbert Hoover, 1930. It was called the War Department at that time. Okay? It is now called, as of 1949, Department of Defense, where in 47 they all were combined. Defense, Department of War, and the Navy were combined, and they were made as one in 1945. So when you deal with the Veterans Administration, you're dealing with the Army. Now, they just crashed over 10 million computers, they told you, and you heard about it, and you said you didn't feel it. The reason why those of you didn't feel it, because this is military trash. They had a major fire in '73 where they burnt the records up, National Archive. Now they've been computerized since 1981 when they first put the first military industrial satellite up. And they crashed all that crap. It's trash. They crashed their own computers. Okay? And not only that, Now, what they've done, less than 7 days later, on the 7th of this month, they turned around because the Center for Disease can't keep, they're getting expanded. So what they're doing, they put that under the United States Army. You can't get your information on world diseases now because everything is under the United States Army. They are running like cockroaches when the lights come on, trying to, this thing from steamrolling them. Homeland Security, Veterans Administration, they are only advisory. They have no business handling your money, dispensing payroll, or nothing else. Homeland Security is not a part of the Constitution. You look up your Constitution, these agencies are not in the Constitution. They are advisory only to the President and nothing else. And I tell you that because I'm a veteran. I haven't been in the VA since 2007 because after filing my claim in 95, and I'm still fighting for it, they finally give me a copy of the DD-214 that they're using on me, which is a fraudulent one. It's not mine. It has a presidential seal on it and everything. I have the original. They've been showing me my original for years. And now, I haven't been in the VA since 2007 for a reason. That's, first of all, it's espionage and treason to mess around with a federal document. And if you're military, it's called...
It's time. It's time.
Sir, this is very important to the community.
Sir, it's
you gave someone else 3 minutes and 2 minutes and 3. You gave yourself extra minutes. Give me another minute.
Please, sir.
Give me another minute.
Just touch him on the shoulder and just say it's time to go. It's time to go, sir. Thank you.
That's why you don't have money in this year. You got money and you don't know how to get it.
Thank you, sir.
Huh?
Aldine Sly, 1st District. Some information fell into my hands when I came to the meeting tonight, and I'd like some clarification. It says, per Chief Fraterana, the signature line on all Chief of Police correspondence, letters, memos, should be prepared as follows. Mark Fronterata, Chief of Police. Also attached are revised letterhead templates to include Acting Captain Steve Overly. When did that happen, and were we not supposed to be involved in selecting our new chief? Because this statement says that from here on out, all letterhead, everything will have Mark Fronterana as Chief of Police. And unless I missed something.
He was made the interim or acting chief a few weeks ago. Jacqueline Seabrooks is no longer with the department. Her name is on the correspondence. Since he is the interim chief of police, that's the way correspondence is addressed. It's not going to go out with Chief Jacqueline Seabrooks anymore.
So is he actually Chief of Police now?
For all intents and purposes, he's the Chief of Police until we pick another one. He's the interim Chief of Police.
He's the interim?
Yes.
But it doesn't say that.
Either one, acting interim. It doesn't have to say that. Right? You don't put that on correspondence that goes to other organizations. You have a Chief of Police. So that's the way it's done. I was a chief 3 times over. It has no significance as far as permanence.
That's not clarification for me, but thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Joseph Texera. I have repeatedly asked this council to work with IPD to improve its policies and procedures to better protect and serve all of Inglewood's residents and visitors. Coincidentally, only about a week after IPD refused to investigate the drive-by on my street, the Justice Department said IPD should improve its policies and procedures in this report. Now, although I've asked the council to facilitate this improvement, it appears that this council has actually facilitated further IPD officer and administrative misconduct. It appears that for years, some on this council and the police department and other positions of power in Inglewood have grown to accept the idea that crime and inadequate police services is just the way it is in Inglewood. So they don't try very hard to improve things, even though crime is the biggest obstacle to improving this city's image and attracting new businesses and permanent home buyers. For instance, after I spoke here on June 12th, a commissioner from Inglewood's Citizen Police Oversight Commission told me that she had heard all or most of my addresses to the council, but that she still didn't know what I wanted, even though I've repeatedly said that I want IPD's policies and procedures improved because 2 IPD detectives didn't return my 5 or 6 or so phone calls for 3 months each, and officers didn't want to investigate the shooting on my street, but asked me to collect bullet shells for them in a fresh crime scene, and IPD Captain Sissick and former Chief Seabrooks have both come here and given blatantly false and deceptive information to the public, covering up that police misconduct with the mayor and the council's help. In fact, right before we spoke, this police commissioner had just heard me prove, beyond any doubt, that the mayor blatantly misled the public on May 22nd when he claimed that he and former Chief Seabrooks only found out a few weeks earlier that there were IPD tapes that proved my complaints, when in fact they had both told the public about those tapes up to 9 months earlier. But none of these serious and sometimes dangerous problems with our police department, a police captain, and a police chief seemed to bother a police commissioner. The only thing she wanted to know was, what would it take to get me to stop exposing these problems? That's it. So I told her I wanted IPD's policies and procedures improved again, but she didn't want to hear that. So she asked me a second, third, and fourth time what I wanted. So I told her what I wanted a second, third, and fourth time, but she still wasn't satisfied. The moral to this story is that some people who have power concerning our police department, the council, some commissioners, apparently care more about hiding police problems than fixing police problems. If you want to sell expensive houses in Inglewood, different streetlights won't do it. You have to show people that this council, this mayor, are serious about improving our police department and protecting our residents. That's it. End of story.
Well, on a lighter note, my name is Donna Williams. I'm here from the Training and Research Foundation, Head Start. I'm the Male Involvement Coordinator over there. This is my partner, Mr. Danny Polanco. How you guys doing? Miss Yvonne, could you pass out the little book
Yes,
we gave you?
she's
Oh, thank
going
you.
to right now.
Well, basically we're here because we were Head Start here in Inglewood. We have 17 schools. We service over 1,700 families and children. And we have a family life component where we provide, although we are preschool, we provide services to families. We give them workshops, events, try to help families find jobs, how to help them, build their credit, different things like that. And as well as that, we also have a father involvement program, the Daddy and Me program. And basically what we try to do is we try to link fathers up with their kids and try to give them the opportunity to do things for their kids and be a part of their lives. Because statistics show that children without their father tend to be more likely to go to jail, more likely to drop out of school. So this is kind of our little solution to that little problem here. What you have in front of you is a small book of how we do things, just kind of how we put our organizational things together. And we're actually here because our first event is going to be a Daddy and Me Go to School night day. Actually, all the fathers that come and bring their children to school, we want to create a little incentive to them by giving them the opportunity to take their child to a soccer game. So we partnered up with Chiva USA, and they put together a great package for us that will give us the opportunity to take 250 of our dads with their children. They're going to donate 2 buses. They're going to give them the opportunity to go down on the field and kind of go through the parade, take pictures. And really, it's a really, just to see those kids and give them that opportunity is kind of how we want to jumpstart our program. So we're coming here to you guys to see if you guys would like to partner with us and help us sponsor such an event.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Richard Boji. I was here a couple of weeks ago, and this regards the restrictions you put on the car repairs. I physically went out and counted the number of stores you have in Inglewood. There are 75. On La Brea, there are 28. Florence, 10. Century, 30. Prairie, 9. Inglewood, 3. Centinela, 10. Abovida, 1. Manchester, 9. Spruce, 1. Pepoy. Crenshaw, 1. Now, why I come up with these figures, the staff reports say that you have 148 stores in the city of Inglewood, and they are overcrowding the city. But the physical aspect of it, they are just on the 75 stores. And if I'm off, I might be off by about 2 or 3 of them. The way I went around it was I went to each store, picked up their business cards. And so I went down and put my report together. So I asked the staff how they came up 148 stores. The figure was kind of outrageous. And she told me that those are permits that were issued. So I came back, I said, okay, if those are the permits that were issued, can you give me a report saying that these stores are located at this location? I didn't get any answer on that one because they are just on a 75, so they cannot locate. So 2 days ago I asked, I think the problem is your computers were not updated. The information you have people who used to have stores, maybe there are 6 on a location, but the current active stores are just on a 75. And the same thing happened in the city of Hawthorne because that's the comparative figure that was used. They have about 60 to 75 repair stores. So I don't know who came up with an exaggerated figure, overstated figure, but to me it is a disservice to those people who want to come in and do their work, and those who are in and cannot get a license. So that's my concern.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Bailey.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, staff. Tonight I'm going to talk about the ambulatory service that we are currently having with McCormick in the city. And they are based on Hillcrest and off of Manchester. It's a good location, I agree. But like you said, Mayor, nobody wants to live next to a ambulance service or a fire department or anything of emergency services because of the noise. It's a very delicate balancing act we have to deal with in the city because we all need emergency services, cops, ambulance, fire, and it's unfortunate we have to pay for it, because we are citizens of the United States, and that should be something that goes along with being a citizen. But we have to pay taxes. So what I'm basically trying to say is the ambulatory service is near Vaughn's. Behind Bruno's, across the street, there's McDonald's and another businesses over there, and then there's the the service station. And behind the service station is a nursing home. Yes, noise from the ambulance service is a reality that we have today because, let's admit, we don't have the best drivers in the world in California. I walk up and down Manchester at some very unusual times, and I walk this whole city at very unusual times just to see what the heartbeat of the city is all about. And I know it very well. I see cars travel in the city with no headlights, noise blaring, radios, gang members walking up and down the street, kids after curfew. We have public safety problems in this city. And it's not a city council problem, it's a parent problem, I'm trying to say. But we all need to communicate as far as, getting the public safety part together. Now, we need ambulances. How do we do this in an affordable, very respectable manner for the city of Inglewood? I don't know. But all I know is that if the ambulatory system needs to improve, then let's do it. Let's help them by any means, but obviously we are going to inconvene people because of the noise. But also, we have to educate the public on how to pull over to the left when there's because I've seen it happen. Excuse me, to the right, excuse me, to the right. When an emergency vehicle is coming down the street, I see them stop right dead in the middle of a street. It doesn't make sense. I thought you go to DMV when you take your driver's license test and they tell you this. But, like I said, we need emergency services. Let's try and balance this problem with the public. Because we need the education.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good night almost.
I just want to say a few things. My name's Lynette Lewis, 1st District. I got here a little late. I saw a couple of things on the agenda that I wanted to address, but I was a little late getting here to do so. But one of the things I want to say, why don't y'all put the agenda back like it was? I mean, it's almost impossible to find out what CS1 and CS2 is way back over on the other place. Sometimes we try to improve stuff and make it worse. So what happened, we need to go back and put the agenda how it should be. However, I just want to say that, Mike, on this installation, sound installation, when you guys going to review the noise corridor? Because as you know that the noise is getting, the airplanes are getting bigger and they're coming closer and closer and closer. There is no real, seem to be a little flight pattern. They go wherever they want to go, and I wish I would look at that because I'd like to have a little installation or something at my house as well. But I did see on this agenda that I did want to say something, the evaluation of the city attorney and his performance. You know, Cal been around for a minute or two, and I think that Cal has done a wonderful job working with you guys. I would have quit a long time ago. But I'm just saying, but he has done an excellent job here in this city, and I would hope that, you know, I'm sure if he's here, he's going to continue to do a great job for us and what have you. And on CSA2, I just found it, on the economic community development. I would look that we should adopt this on the KP Auto Center, LP, and send that in if we would do that. We should look at that if we can possibly do it at this late date. And that's CST and the Economic and Community Development Report. Okay. Thank you. And on the thing where the young lady talked about the police chief thing, sometimes when information get out like that, and people hear it and what have you, they feel like they don't really trust the council and what have you, that you're trying to slip something in over on them. And so therefore, when they get something that says that, oh, they've changed, and they say that you have sent something out for to seek a police chief, then they think you have double-crossed them for some reason, and I think that's the reason why they raised it tonight. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff, and great residents of the great city of Inglewood. My name is Wayne Spencer, cheerleader, businessman, residents, 30-plus years. I'm just happy to be here. My council members, a letter of invitation will be coming to you. August 5th is Jamaica's 50th anniversary of independence, and we will be at Holy Faith Episcopalian Church. I'll be requesting a resolution from the City Council celebrating such an event. And you know, overall, the Jamaican organizations would love to make Inglewood their home. And as some of you may recall, Inglewood is already a sister city with Port Antonio in Jamaica. So some close dates, maybe next year, March or so, we'd love you to join the Rotarians as we go to Jamaica, one of our health projects. That's down in the future. Mr. Councilman Stevens, I want to thank you, sir, for your work so far. We're hoping to have a celebratory family picnic type day later on in August with different community liaisons of Trinidad, Jamaicans, and all that type of stuff in Sentinel Park. On the, also, we're hoping we can get the Inglewood Color Guard on that particular, on August 5th, to support us. And, you know, the Council General to Los Angeles will be there, and we just want to make a great event overall. And you guys may even hear me sing, you never know. A resolution, a color guard, the whole 9 yards. The MTA project, you know, I spoke yesterday, and I want to thank the mayor for his leadership. And I think it's a great idea if we could have gotten this project to come down Prairie. It may be, unless we show great political will and the citizens come out in arms, that may never happen. But the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, the executive board, has asked me to extend to the council that if you need a letter of support for such a thing, the South Bay WIB stands ready to give you such a letter. And that's basically what I think all my notes say. And I'm getting older now, so I have to start writing things down. I can't speak extemporaneously as I used to in the past. But I thank you very much. Wonderful meeting, guys. My gosh, I'm just tickled pink, you know. The teamwork, the efforts with staff, I thought it was so professional. I am tickled. Have a good day.
Thank you, Wayne.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sorry I have to come up here, but I haven't been here in such a long time. I'm so compelled to do this. I was a Parks and Recreation Commissioner for, I believe, 8 or 9 years for the city of Inglewood. We successfully completed a beautiful project at Circle Park, which was the Circle Park Fountain. Really improved the Circle Park and made it just a destination. The problem is that I believe that there were a lot of people that were in the city that weren't really behind it, and as a result, if you go there now, you'll see that the fountain is not maintained. There were trees that were installed, palm trees, that weren't properly irrigated. The lighting that was supposed to be on the trees was supposed to be high-density lighting, so at night the trees would be lit up. And the trees are leaning now, looking like they're almost about to fall. You know, you can't do anything. You can't renovate. You can't do anything without knowing that you have a responsibility for maintenance. And when you go around Park Circle, most people really appreciate and enjoy the fountain, contrary to what people said. But if you look, the fountain is covered now. It's this beautiful Malibu tile. The Malibu Tile Factory was one of the most beautiful tile factories and businesses in California because they made handmade painted tiles, beautiful tiles on the beach in Malibu. This is being replicated, and the people that did the fountain actually replicate the Malibu tiles that were done in the 20s at the Malibu beach. And as a result, if you drive around and you look at that, they were very expensive palm trees that we were able to acquire. They're dactylifera palms. They're dying from lack of water. It's ridiculous. It's just outrageous to think of the amount of money spent and the time and effort spent, that the people that go there would not see that those palms are leaning. And I'm not talking about just tilted a little. I'm talking about leaning and actually present a hazard. And they put these little tiny lights on them that you wouldn't even put in your backyard. This is a 300 square foot park, and it's actually 3,000 square feet, and what happens is the fountain was done symmetrically, and the lights that they put on there are lights you wouldn't even put the 12-volt low volts. We spent almost $68,000 to $72,000 of the money that was allocated for the fountain because the city was not paying their light bill, and they made us put a whole new box up there with the fountain money. And when they did it, they promised that they were going to run the lights on the palms. They never did it. It's disgraceful. We never even had an opening for it. Most residents came and really appreciated it and enjoyed it. But I don't understand why we don't embrace things that beautify. It's like not celebrating Century Boulevard when it was done. It's like not celebrating when we put all the palm trees on Manchester. We just don't really care anything about the city if we don't care about beautifying it and maintaining it. It's outrageous. It's hypocrisy.
My name is Willie A.G., and I live in the beautiful city of Inglewood. I'm also Park and Recreation Commission. As a matter of fact, I'm chair. I fought this fountain thing from the get-go. And the way it's not being taken care of, I agree with the lady. It's a disaster. As far as I'm concerned, a disaster waiting to happen, because you got a foot of water there, and you know, and kids playing over there all the time. I just hate to see one fall in there and hurt himself, you know, and nobody there to take him out. I think it's a good idea, but it's at the wrong place. The people in the neighborhood did not.
Folks, could we not talk in the audience? Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Agee.
The people in the neighborhood did not want a fountain there. They wanted to park the state as it was. I walked the whole circle, and they just didn't want it there. But it's there, And I'm afraid that sooner or later somebody's going to get hurt. I would like to see it. I would like to see the water removed and replaced with flowers like we have here in front of City Hall. I think that would be beautiful, and I think it'd be a lot more safer. I want to thank this council and for voting on the memorandum, not the memorandum, but the Sentinel Park, the football field and soccer field, lighting, upgrading. I just hope one day it'll get done. I'm working on something right now. I want to see the playhouse reopened. I want to see kids being taught. I know the actresses, the directors, the people that can go in there and help these kids. People talk about how much they want to do for kids. This is the opportunity. I haven't talked to the mayor about this yet, but I will. It's for the kids. I'm willing to spend some of my money to get it done. And I think the people in the city of Inglewood should step up to the plate, not sit back and wait for somebody else to do things for our kids. We need to step up and do something for our kids ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Agee.
Evelyn Alexander. No disrespect to my elder, but you do not live in District 1. You're in District 4. And you cannot speak for the people in District 1. Now, that fountain,
ma'am, you have to
I don't care what you are. Right now, you're a resident, and I'm at the podium.
Ma'am, please address the council. Thank you.
I'm trying to respect my elders. Now, look, that fountain, we obtained money from Jerome Horton at the time to put that fountain over there in the circle in my area. And just like Cindy said, it's not being kept like it should. And you don't go around through that area and see little kids out there by themselves, as you're trying to portray. So they're always accompanied by someone. You don't live there. I live there, and I'm retired, just like you. So
thank you.
It's kind of hard.
I know. Work on it for me, though.
I'm working it.
All right.
But we do need maintenance. It's a beautiful fountain. We've had people to come there and just walk around. They come, some of the elderly people, they come and sit. And it's soothing for the water. They always tell you that water is very relaxing. So people come and sit there to enjoy themselves and enjoy the fountain. And we do need maintenance. Now, I don't care where you get that money, because I know we haven't used all the money that was allocated for that fountain. Now, somehow they managed to bring that mural and put it over there by Inglewood High School. Now, I don't know who money they used. I think they used some of our money. But anyway, I want to see the fountain maintained. I live there. I walk around in that area. And when people come to visit me, sometimes we walk over there. So I want to see the fountain maintained. It doesn't cost that much, I'm sure. I'm sure we have some money somewhere. Somebody can find some money to maintain that fountain. Thank you.
Mr. Fields, would you check with Ms. Barnes on that?
I've already had conversations.
Okay. We're
doing something.
Okay.
My name's Dan Sombrano, and I think you've heard an awful lot of interest in the beautification of this community, and yet some of you are so thrilled with Hollywood Park tomorrow. I wonder how many of you have actually looked at the property. We have dead chrysanthemums where there have never been dead plants before. There's weeds growing where there's never been weeds before. And every opportunity some of you have, you sing the praises of the company that now has disgraced the beautiful name, the beautiful plantings, the beautiful entrances that were Hollywood Park. And it's really sad to me that as you, of course, look across the street, the most disgusting property in this entire city, I'm sorry about that, Circle Park still has greenish grass. The area near me has no green grass. We have the tumbleweed fields growing ever so delightfully and then turning brown. I am truly surprised that during this 4th of July we did not have a small little fire there. Or maybe we did. I don't know. When I came home, what was very disgusting to me was 9-ish. There were all those illegal fireworks shooting up everywhere you could possibly imagine. I yelled at 2 young people who were in their 30s. Isn't that a scary concept? 30s, a young person. Shooting those things smack through trees. Now, I know that it sounds like I have a personal issue with this. I do. I walked down the street. Most of you know the corner of the church and the school, and one of you knows exactly where I mean. If that individual had walked to that corner, there would have been 2 perfect views of illegal fireworks setters sending things skyrocketing into the air directly in the direction of trees. Can you imagine what would have happened? Now, I know one of you doesn't think that a spark does anything. The other one thinks it's great that we can raise money, and I believe in raising money for some of our young youth groups. However, I don't believe that it should be at the expense of someone else's home. And sooner or later, that's going to happen. Do anyone remember Colorado Springs? How many homes are you willing to lose for someone to make a couple of $1,000s in 1 week? Which one of you is going to take responsibility when that happens? We've cut back our parks and recreation crews, and then we complain because we don't have green space and our lawns aren't kept. Have you checked the ordinances? We fine people for overgrowth, but we don't fine them for dead, brown, disgusting lots. And of course, if the city fined the redevelopment agency successor, guess who would have the most of those tickets?
Good night, just about. Diane was just talking about the fireworks, and as you all know, that I work with the Inglewood Wiseman's organization to support the YMCA and other worldwide things that the Wiseman organization do. And just want you to be mindful that those fireworks that she was talking about are in fact illegal fireworks. And we had the battle of trying to stop fireworks here altogether, which would harm many of us who are trying to do many different things. Some of the organizations here anyway. But then we had problems this year with so many of these fireworks stands here, and I wish that you then would really look into who these people are and what they're actually doing with those monies, because I will tell you that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing with regard to supporting youth or other things in this city. So they had 24, which is much too many. They can't make any money. The only people making money are the fireworks companies themselves. Ms. Sly talked to you a bit about her concerns about the designation of police chief here. And you, Mayor Butts, answered that by saying that the chief had to have the designation of chief rather than acting chief for whatever reason. My concern is that I had some information too that the chief has hired a captain or named a captain. And I was wondering, with the state of this city and funding here, and supposedly, they were not supposed to be doing any hiring. How does this come about? Do you them know about it, and are you agreeing to this? Or is it just that an individual can add to his force and add to the budget of the city without you them agreeing to it? So that's kind of my question to you tonight. Don't know if I'll get an answer, but...
Mr. Fisher, it's not an addition to the force. It's a temporary appointment to fill a temporary vacancy. The person starts at entry level, so actually it's a budgetary savings. In fact, an officer is not hired at the end of the chain behind them, so we're one officer light. So actually it ends up being a budgetary saving.
So it's a budgetary
It ends up
savings.
being a budgetary savings.
I'll take it that, it is a budgetary savings. But, I'd like to ask the other question. Is it a 30-day or a 90-day that we have to
Mr. Fisher, your time is up. We'll get you the next time.
Okay. Will you answer that question, maybe?
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
thank you.
All right.
After Austin, I like this to go down the record. Please don't take my minutes. When I finish, please talk. First thing I want to mention is about this chief of police. Thanks, Mike Stevens, for your vote against Martin Sizak. Anyway, yes, it does take money. You're going to change all of this letterheading back to the chief. Yes, it does. This is our money, not yours. None of the council members knew nothing about none of this, but you want to get rid of the city attorney when he's the one protecting this city. He didn't bring them lawsuits. Them same cops you promoting is the one was in charge of the killings where we lost all these millions of dollars. Remember that. And Captain Hand, you promoted 3 captains, you moved Martin Sizak, you moved all these people that were qualified out of their positions without us knowing and approvals. Yes, it costs money, our money. You need to stop doing that. You really should. Before we need to report you. We need to do like San Fernando and file bankruptcy because we ain't got no money. Where you finding all this money to promote all these people? That's what I want to know. Another thing I want to mention is the 4th of July about these fireworks. All these people came, took our money like we said, and gone. They gone. Who's going to help all of the homeless? Who's going to do this? Nobody's doing nothing. But yet everybody got an answer. Everybody got an answer. One other thing, on the 4th of July, we had 12 shootings at 77 Precinct. 2 died. 10 was hospitalized. 3 on Normandy. 14-year-old died. 2 was hospitalized. All of this happened during the fireworks. One other thing, we have all of these city administrators. We got one over the trash, one over the clock, making over $80,000 a year. But yet you want to put the city attorney and all this stuff. You want to promote all these people. Get rid of all these city administrators we don't need here. We don't need all these city administrators. We work with 2 city administrators. Judy and Ralph Franklin was right here. And Morales. We had only 2. And they took care of this city. Now it looks like ever since you getting all these city administrators, everything is on the first floor. What is the city clerk job now? She can't even do her own agenda. It's upstairs. What are we paying all this people money for when everything is upstairs? Why are we paying cable when it's on YouTube? There's so much stuff that you all are doing. San Bernardino filed bankruptcy. City manager, the mayor standing up there like, oh, I didn't know we were broke. Yes, right. Right. When this city go down, you go down. Always remember that. You go down. And you will go down because the reserve funds is tapped out. So you may as well call in the audit and shut it down and let the sheriffs come in. Just the way you promoting and promoting, they won't be there long.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close public comment and council comments. Councilman Stevens.
Yes, I'd just like to say to the public, just very briefly, in reference to the gentleman who researched the auto garages, hats off to you for your diligence And I'd like to speak with you perhaps tomorrow. If you can contact my office, please give me a call. I admire your diligence to do that. In reference to Mr. Fields, 528 Manchester Boulevard, directly across the street from the Barnes Supermarket, there is a pass-through area where it has been forgotten by staff. I've attempted to contact Public Works several times. I've sent them emails, and it seems as though they have not responded to the issue of I've got 4 foot tall weeds in this one area. The rest of my district is coming along fine, but this one area, for whatever the reasons are, they seem not to be able to eradicate those weeds that are growing there. It's just between Manchester Drive and Manchester Terrace. There's a little path. There's a public right-of-way through there. And so if we could have them take care of that. Now on 6th Avenue and Manchester Boulevard, we have a coral tree right there that's growing into the sprinkler system of the sprinkler system for the tree, and it's causing the pooling of water in front of the homes that are just to the south of 6th Avenue and Manchester Boulevard on the southern side of the alleyway. And I've contacted Public Works on that also 3 times. And for whatever the reasons are, in the last week and a half, I guess they've been overwhelmed or whatever, but they just haven't been responding. Then when, let's see, when will we, I'd like to, I understand that we're going to be installing new playground equipment. We've all come to agreement on that, but I just would like to know from your office the specific date. I understand that it was changed. Now, I would just like to say this in reference to the fountain. When I first came on board, the fountain was an issue that the residents surrounding Circle Park and throughout District 1 were very much dissatisfied with. And the issue was that the workmanship was the biggest issue. The design was another. And they wanted something that was a bit more contemporary. Now, the dirt that you see, Ms. Alexander, that's inside of there is a result of the basket weave at the base of it. And what the original contractor did was he placed a bit of sand there, but he did it improperly. So when people walked on it, the sand rose to the top, and then the children, as well as people with their dogs, especially the dogs' paws carry the sand into the fountain. Now, the council has allocated funding for the maintenance of the fountain. The problem is that the fountain itself does not have a commercial pump. It has a residential pump. It was it's just totally inferior workmanship is what actually happened to it. Public Works, Miss Barnes can tell you this. I'm not exaggerating. They literally used radiator clamps on the spigots, on the fountain spigots, and that's why you do not have a stream similar to the fountains that you have over at the cemetery. What I am proposing to do is yes, sir, thank you. What I am proposing to do is I researched this, and believe it or not, in China, we can actually obtain a fountain prefabricated for under $10,000, the same size as that. And what I'm working with staff on is actually taking the fountain that we have there, taking it down to the base, and coming up with a strategy where we can simply purchase one of these fountains, have it brought back, have it shipped over here, and we set it up. And in doing so, we will then have a fountain that will work, because the fountain that we have there now is not working, and it's costing the city a tremendous amount of money to maintain it. And plus, also the palm trees, we have California palms that do not match the existing palm trees. The lighting was in the actual blueprint. So what is there is what was in the design plans. And unfortunately, the design plan itself was an inferior design plan. And it's
to wind it down.
And
You have to wind it down.
Oh, okay, well, I know. But I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate the fact that you were attempting to bring something positive to the community, and through no fault of your own, the design plan just fell short for that fountain. But we're going to make it right, and we're going to do the best we can. But we have allocated money to, in fact, keep that fountain clean. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the extra time.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Della.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Fields, I'm looking at the memo that was sent out from the Environmental and Sanitation Services Manager to you regarding the transition outreach materials from Consolidated. And it says here that 8,000 residents who are unable to be reached by traditional first-class mail will receive their packet by hand delivery service within the same time frame. Who are these 8,000 people that cannot be reached by first-class mail, that someone thinks they can do a hand delivery to?
I don't know those addresses right offhand.
Well, it's not addresses. If it's an address, first-class mail will get there.
Well, let me find out. I don't have the answer.
Because we're talking about 8,000.
Right.
That's a huge number. And actually, hand delivery is where you can't get. I mean, apartment buildings you can't get into. So I don't understand who these 8,000 residents are. So, and actually, when this information is sent to your office, I would hope that you might ask staff at the time. Why didn't Consolidated put their rates down on this information?
I'm not sure. You can ask Consolidated.
No, I'm going to ask us, because don't we approve these things? Didn't they submit them to us ahead of time?
Yes, they did.
Okay, well, one would have thought that we would have put the rates in, a rate schedule of some kind, so we can communicate this, and this what this is for, is to communicate with the residents, not only about the transition, but about what the rates are. I would like to say that with the two gentlemen who spoke about the Training and Research Foundation, the male engagement program, fantastic. It was really great. Elaine Atlow was a long time friend of mine, and your organization does wonderful work in this community for many years. Affects, my goodness, thousands of children who do much better in school as a result of the program that you have, and the fact that you now have this Daddy and Me engaging, more men with regard to their children is really wonderful, and I just applaud you for it. And I will support you in any way that I can. It's just a great idea. I'd like to also mention in closing that this Thursday of this week, at the Police Community Center in District 2, which is in the Starbucks Center at La Brea and Centinela in District 2, we're going to be having a meeting of where the acting chief of police, Mark Fronterata, will be there with some of his command staff to speak to residents, mostly on Beach Street, south of Centinela, and some of the surrounding streets, Kincaid, Venice Way, Hill, Victor, and Hyde Park, where we've had a lot of issues with regard to criminal activity, break-ins, automobiles, burglaries and shootings and so forth. So the chief is going to be there, and if you live in those areas, please, or anywhere around there, please come out, ask him questions, talk to him with regard to what we can do as a neighborhood. He'll also be speaking to some of the other areas of District 2 as well, but this particular area, and if you want to show up anyway, please do so. Once again, it's at the District 2 Police Community Center, in the shopping center where Starbucks is at La Brea and Centinela. Starts at 7 o'clock this Thursday evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Morales.
I'd just like to briefly also show my support for this program. Ms. Adlow played a big role in most of the Head Start programs that we had here early on. She still continues to do great work, as Ms. Dunlap said. This particular Daddy and Me program is new. I was wondering how far it expands through the city of Inglewood. So I welcome the phone call to my office. Likewise, I'll be as supportive as we can. Other than that, just like to thank everybody for coming out and staying the whole evening here. So thank you very much.
Councilman Morales.
Right.
Oh, Councilman Franklin, I'm sorry. It's late. It's late.
I thought he was getting a double take here.
I apologize.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I've heard several people speak from the audience regarding some kind of correspondence identifying that the acting chief is now making movement on being declared the chief. And I'm concerned that it's sending the wrong message to the public. It's sending the wrong message to this council, because we have a executive search that we're going to use, and yet at the same time somebody has gave him the direction to be able to change all the stationery, that to be changed from his position as captain from the acting chief that this body majority approved, and now someone has allowed him to go to the next step and be identified as the chief. And I clearly want that looked into, especially Mr. City Attorney, to see if that's if that's legal or not. And I'd like this council to make sure it's a council request. Also, I'd like to identify and thank the special enforcement officers that served over 3 hours to secure the area of an auto accident that occurred on July 12th on Thursday. If you know that LAPD was pursuing a suspect with a stolen vehicle that went off the 105 freeway and crashed into several vehicles on Crenshaw between the 112th Street and 111th Place. And I want to thank them for their efforts, and also B&H Tow on cleaning up the mess, because at once they were not going to completely fill it, but then ultimately they took care of business and cleaned up the whole street on both sides of the street because the accident was so large. Finally, I'd like to identify that at the last meeting there was a group here from the Clean Car Wash campaign, along with disgruntled terminated employees that left various car washes for whatever reason. But they particularly cited the car wash on Crenshaw Imperial Car Wash owner-operator, Mrs. Pearl Rocket, stating that she was not in compliance with state law and federal law. I've made several visits to that location, and I've went through the entire operations, and that I must tell you that the ladder that was being questioned to be an issue is actually a platform, stationary, where the person wears gloves and galoshes. So for someone slipping and falling, there's so many cameras in that place that I'm afraid to pick my nose. So for see something like that to occur, I think that they clearly identified and they would have took action. In addition to the allegation about time clocks, that they have a time clock where the employee is required to clock in at the start of their shift, punch in and out for lunch, and clock out at the end of the workday, and they sign the card at the end of the week that this is a service that's rendered and they've been provided. I've also seen a number of payroll documents showing that these employees were paid the minimum wage of $8 an hour, plus overtime at $12 an hour for the time allotted for the services. And so where these allegations came up from, I'm not aware of it, except the employees brought it to the attention, and I did my due diligence on this council, making sure that a long-time resident as well as a business operator was in fact in compliance and providing a fair day's pay for a fair day's wage. And so my hats goes off to the Imperial Crenshaw Car Wash. Thank you very much, Mayor.
All right. I wanted to tell everybody that the space shuttle is going to be coming from LAX through Inglewood to the California Museum of Science and Industry at some point in the future, and we're going to have a staff report on that endeavor, and the aircraft is called Endeavor at that, in the next couple weeks, I believe. I want to talk a little bit about this, I guess it's pettiness over the police chief. I would like to speak. I've run 3 police departments. Whenever you have an interim or an acting chief of police, the stationery only reads chief of police. You don't put out stationery with the old chief's name on it, and stationery is not prohibitively expensive. A stack of letters with the chief's name on it. It is nothing that the chief needs authorization for. There's no legal consequence to it. So we really just need to focus on public safety, of which we've been doing a very good job. And so, no, I don't support any inquiry into what is a common and ministerial function. I really want to thank again staff for the work that they did on the housing element, Councilman Stevens on his efforts at RSI. The entire council has done a really great job in continuing to move the city forward, even though we still have financial challenges, although we still lack reserve funds, we still have a lot of work to do. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Thank you very much.